Well, I forgot to preload the X-Plane transition there, so just stand by as we have a nice dark screen. I'll get the welcomes in chat here while we can wait for the X-Plane picture to pop up. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Super excited for today's stream. There we go. Should be seeing the visuals now. So we are finally getting to look at the Toliss A321 NEO paid update version. So this is a paid add-on for existing 321 users of the Toliss aircraft. Now, a lot of people have been saying, oh, it's just an engine change, and what's really, is it worth it? Is it worth the upgrade or not? I'm here to do this stream to come from an objective side of things, because I'm not employed by Toliss by any means, or anybody for that matter. Well, other than my actual real life job, but as far as simulation goes, I'm not bound by anything. But I do want to make sure we keep things respectful in chat. But I'm going to do my best to explain to you guys what you're really getting with this aircraft and what has actually been changed, because there is a lot more than meets the eye to this NEO package. So we'll get talking about that today. I know it's dark right now, but it's actually early morning. It's 6 in the morning here in Los Angeles in sim time, and we're going to have a beautiful dawn departure. Our scheduled departure time is 1500 Z, which is right about 7 o'clock in the morning. So the sun will be coming up here very soon, so don't worry about that. We'll have plenty of time to look at the NEO engines. We will also, once we get up to cruise, after we're done talking, we'll exhaust the NEO options and differences, and then when we get up to cruise, it's a little bit longer of a flight, because I want to show you guys something kind of cool with the fuel burn. But then we're going to go back to studying. You guys know I'm going back to work here pretty soon in January, so I have my study guide, master questions that I'm going to be asking you guys, real life study material from the Airbus, from all three airframes, the 19, 20, 21, and the NEO, of course. And we're going to go ahead and talk about that in the cruise phase. Now, our route of flight today is going to take us from Los Angeles up to Portland. Now, SimBrief does not have NEO engine performance and fuel burns. So what I'm doing as a fun little experiment here, I'm going to pull up my Los Angeles. I already filed the flight plan at SimBrief. We're not going to be on VATSIM today, just because I wanted to really focus on the airplane and focus on talking to you guys in chat. VATSIM is a lot of fun. I love the guys that work at VATSIM. A lot of hard work they put in there. But I wanted to focus on really just talking about the airplane, not having to worry about missing anything. So this is a 321 planned gate fuel 18.6, okay, for a standard 321. We are going to take 16,000 pounds even. Okay, we are using imperial units because I'm obviously in the US, so imperial units is huge to me. So we're going to take significantly less fuel from the gate, and we're going to check out our fuel burns all the way up to Portland. That's why this flight is a little bit longer en route. Should be right about that hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. I know this says 2 hours, but we're going to be flying a little bit faster. Our anticipated burn is 13,600. We'll call it 13.7. We'll take a look at that once we get on the ground. We'll see what our actual burn was in the 321 NEO. All right. Back to the chat. I am Dimitri. What's going on, man? Good to see you here. Flash, Chris the Hard, Christian Adrian Ionscu. What's going on, man? Cartage well. Good to see you here, brother. Dougal McTavish. Good to see you, my friend, as well. Mrs. Jungles in the house. Aaron Hastings, Drew Schonberg, Chris, Captain Geo. Good to see you, man. Man, look at all those silver stripes. Man, a lot of you members are hitting that silver rank of, I guess that's the silver first officer, because you have gold captain still to go, but you guys are getting up there. That is fantastic. Love to see the support. Anderson C, good to see you as well. Flight Simmer 7700, Arion, good to see you as well. Noob Gamer, a lot of guys in the house today. Awesome. Glad to see everybody on board. So, Phantom 320 also in chat, also new moderator. Thought I'd throw you blue, man, because you've been around a long time. Appreciate your help. Helped me a lot with sim stuff, and also a former real Airbus pilot himself. He's actually in the air traffic control world right now too, so he's a huge help when we have anything air traffic control related. All right, let's hop into the airplane, guys, and it's completely cold and dark, so I'm gonna go ahead and, I know it's really dark, I can't even see anything here. Let's just go ahead and get some power hooked up. There we go. We'll turn on the dome light to bright so we can at least see what we're doing. We are running everything default sounds for this airplane. I know you guys talk about the FT Sim Neo mod and BSS pack, so That'll all come later, I'm sure, but I just wanted to show you guys straight out of the box what you guys are getting with your add-on here in the 321 NEO. And to be honest with you, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you that the default sounds when the Toliss first released their 319 and then their 321, the default engine sounds were not, in my opinion, were not the best. But they have since come a long way and actually tweaked a lot of the default sounds to the point now where I'm talking even non-NEO operators. If you just buy a default Toliss airplane, I don't even think it's necessary to get a BSS sound pack. For me personally, I will, because I just love that extra crispness and that extra enhanced sounds, which is not necessarily realistic at all, because in the cockpit you actually hear a lot less than you may think that you hear. But with their NEO sounds, I think their NEO sounds are pretty darn good. So we'll take a good listen to those as well. Let the airplane get brightened up here. Let's go to nav light for you. We'll keep everything else off. We'll begin the alignment process here on the overhead. Let's see, that looks good. We got to turn on ACP3, and that's out and on. Okay, we'll leave everything else off for now. Let's take a look at the engines. Check out those suckers right there, guys. Carter Joel says, I am interested to see what your perspective of the Pratt & Whitney NEOs after seeing 320 SimPilot's experience with their NEO Leaps V1. You know, I didn't actually get to catch 320 SimPilot's stream. I saw that he was, somebody mentioned it in one of the Discord comments. I know he streamed with the Leap versions. I didn't actually catch any of his streams, so I think he flies the Leap variant, right? Which I am a huge Pratt & Whitney fan when it comes to the NEO. We're going to talk all differences, Pratt & Whitney's versus Leap as well. There's a lot of differences, a lot of small things, kind of a little boxing match between the Leaps and the the Leaps and the Pratt & Whitneys. I got a whole laundry list of things that we're going to talk about of the differences between those two engines. And of course, if you guys haven't already seen this, I'm just going to go through this real quick here. So you add your add-on, like right here, you put in your license thing and you activate it, and then you get everything easy. Like you have your IAE engines, CFM engines, Pratt & Whitney's, and the CFM Leap 1As. You can do that NEO sub-variant. We're taking the NEO XLR, actually isn't due to release. Correct me if I'm wrong in chat, but I don't believe anybody's actually flying the XLR variant now. I think they're supposed to enter service in 2023 or deliveries maybe 2021 or something like that, but I'm pretty sure no one's flying the XLR yet. There's a couple of unique things about the XLR, which we're going to get to as well. I've been studying up on the XLR and looking at some Airbus material, trying to see some new stuff. The NEOs that I fly are obviously not the XLR variant, so there is a few things different with the XLR, including the wing design and the wing tanks and the permanent RCT and all that stuff. So we'll look at that a little bit later on in cruise. Number of ACTs, I just have this set to auto, but you can have none or one. Door configuration, you can change all the different door configurations. How many emergency exits you would have on the airplane, that would depend on how many passenger seats are actually in the aircraft. So in order to have emergency exits, and it would be certified by how many passenger seats are in the aircraft or how many people are on board, because that would all depend upon the regulations. And I know the FAA may be a little bit different than the European operators, but I think I want to say up to 50 you need something, and then 51 and above you need an extra door. I can't remember. That might be flight attendant requirements, but there is a requirement for door configurations. I just leave it in auto. Imperial units, of course, we're using Freedom units today. SATCOM antenna, I'm pretty sure that these XLRs would have come with SATCOM if your airline paid for it. Everything else, pretty much, I changed this. Look, I pushed this all the way back to the new side of things instead of flying with the old stuff. And, of course, guys, always enable random faults. We got it running. So that's all I'm going to show you there. Let's take another look at the engine. Engine modeling, not bad. Not bad. I will say not bad for the Toliss 321 NEO. For the Pratt & Whitneys, the CFMs look just as good. New wing design. We're going to talk about why this wing actually changed. It's actually not necessarily a wing design change, but a flap change for the XLR on the 321. So we'll talk about that a little bit here as things get fired up. But overall, I mean, I think that engine looks pretty darn good. Of course, we'll see it here as the engines, or as the sun comes up and it gets a little bit brighter. So Jeremy Harvey says, I like the fact that each switch sounds a little bit different, and it's not just a copy and paste for each switch. Jeremy Harvey, you're absolutely right. So when I talk about, the sounds, it's the BSS pack changes a lot of the little things, but I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion on what you think of the actual engine sounds. I think they're pretty good. Dimitri says, I'm curious to hear the TSS sound pack. Please comment on how it compares to the FT Sim one. Dimitri, we are definitely going to talk about that. So let's, before we get too carried away here, I do have to fully configure the aircraft here. I did see Cobalt Skies. What's going on, man? He says, I was just activating the Florence kit. She gets heavy. Do I not have the Florence kit activated here? Let me just make sure I do have the Florence kit. I always forget where that is located here. Sounds and add-ons. Nope. Nope. Ground services. Loading performance. Aircraft has Florence kit. Where would the Florence kit option be? Toga reversers. Auto pause. Smart brake. General settings. Override. Now, I don't know. I'm on the XLR variant, so that might change it. I'm not sure. I didn't see the option there. I know it's in the 321 and 319 because we've talked about the Florence kit before, but we'll talk about it a little bit further. There we go. Let's get back to the overhead. Actually, the overhead's already set up. Let's program this box real quick, guys. So, again, mouse lag is pretty much a nil, which I don't know if it was something that they worked on or if it was just something in the update, but the mouse lag for me on my rig has been significantly reduced almost to 0, which is fantastic. So we're going to be operating this as Airbus Industry Flight 100, cost index of 75. This route, we're going to do 360 initially. We're going to step climb it actually here. 360 initially, and let's take a look at our route that we filed. It's actually a very, very scenic route as we go up the Gold Coast here. Carter says the flaps was one of the things 320 Sim Pilot went through. There you go. So yeah, that's the basically removes a slot on the inboard flap. All right, we are going to depart from LA on 25 right on the Lady J4. And I should do this proper. We'll go plan mode, constraints on, zoom our range out. Lady J4 to Castro. Cold Skies, first tab on the ISS, ailerons with ground spoilers at bottom right. All right, let me insert this. Maybe I missed it here. First tab on the ISCS. Oh, ailerons with ground spoiler. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Cobalt Skies. Yeah, so the Florence kit, I thought it used to say aircraft has Florence kit. That may be way back on the first 319 release or something. But yeah, we'll talk. We've talked about the Florence kit a little bit. We'll talk about it on landing as well. Castro out to Entel, November Tango Echo Lima Lima, and then to Shimmer. Yeah, I thought this said Shatner. I was like, we're not going out towards Shatner. We're going to Shimmer. SHIMR. Insert Gallo transition. Insert that, and then load up the Portland. We're going to take 10 left for cinematic purposes, coming in over the water. 10 left, Timbers 2, Buxom, Gallo. Insert. There we go. That looks pretty darn good to me. Our flight plan is in the box. Secondary. How many engines options are there now? So you have 4 engine options now. You have your IAE engines, your CFM engines, your LEAP 1A, which is a NEO version, and the Pratt & Whitney 1100 Pure Powers, which are also a NEO variant. So you have 4 engine options now with your 321. And it's all configurable and easy to change from the ISCS tab, which is very, very convenient. And I mean, you can change things, even the door configuration. So if you want to match an airline, you can match it exactly how you want to for your simulating pleasures. Perf page, I'm just going through the secondary. We've talked about this a lot here. Man, I don't even know what the barrel is. I'm just going with what we had last. Yeah. Well, let's just take a quick look here. Let's pull up the map. What do we got? Because it is Toliss. I do love flying with failures. Where's LA? There we are. And it would be my luck that the one time I don't put in a secondary, we're going to lose an engine. So 300 ECAM temps are 11. Nice cool morning here. Calm wind. Early morning in Los Angeles. Beautiful morning here. 000, and we'll just put 200 on the DH. I love the key sounds on the McDo. That I do too. So this is something that, if you guys remember from a long time ago, my very first 319 video, or 319 flight factor comparison video, I hammered Toliss on the metallic drum sound when you pressed the McDo keys. It was, I don't know why, it was just a tone that, it just kind of was a pet peeve. Every time I pressed the button on the McDo, I was like, that doesn't sound right. It kind of ruined the immersion factor of messing around in the box for me, and they have since changed that. I think this is the best sounding McDo keys that we have in the sim, is this McDo now from Toliss is on this sound pack, their default sounds, the McDo push buttons. So very small detail indeed, but again, it makes a difference for detail-oriented people, which I find myself detail-oriented most times, and I know Jeremy Harvey is hugely detail-oriented, especially when it comes to audio and music. So, all right, so we've got our secondary, nothing to hard tune in there. Init B, let's load up this airplane here. So we'll take, we're going to take a moderately loaded airplane here. We'll get rid of the aft. We'll take, that's a lot of cargo in this airplane. We don't need all that. We'll take, there we go, 3,800 pounds. We'll load that. Block fuel 16.4. We'll load that because we want to plan to take off with about 16,000. So remember, our flight plan was actually calling for almost 19,000 pounds of gas for a standard 321. We're going to take less gas, and we're going to see how it does. So we're going to take 16.4. We'll quick load all that. So we have 156.0 and a CG of 25 even. Wow, look at that. Right on the money there. With a block fuel of, just confirm it is on board, 16.4. And let's see what the fuel calculation comes up with. Hopefully we're not in the red here. Look at that. We still have, according to this box, we still have 43 minutes extra time. So we can even take less fuel. But I'm just going to take 16 for easy math because we'll take off with 16,000. But I mean, we could easily take off with probably less than 16,000 pounds. But of course, in real life, you'll have time or alternate time requirements and minimum landing fuel requirements. But I mean, look at this with, geez, 68,000 pounds of fuel. That is insane. That's almost double the 321 fuel, normal 321. That's awesome. These XLRs are a different beast, man. All right. Since we're already in the ISCS page here, we're going to go flaps 1, definitely Toga. Now, I have been told that the V-speed computations is not quite accurate yet with the NEO performance. I know they said they were going to change that before the release. So we're going to, let's just, 60, yeah, those speeds are a little high. We're going to just go ahead and run it. I think we'll be fine. 149, 149, and 153 with a Toga takeoff. But I believe they are going to work on performance calculations with the NEO performance numbers before the release version actually is dropped. So flaps 1, no flex, thrust reduction 19.7, engine out is 1470. That looks good. Takeoff for 2.5 right. All right, I think our box is pretty much ready to go. We'll close that. We'll close that. Close that. Had almost every window open here. Let's go to the overhead. Let's get the APU fired up here. Get the seatbelt signs on and arm. I have my nav light on? There we go. Prime up the APU. That goes back to arc mode. What did I say the altimeter was? 3000, right? So set 3000 there. Got our flap open page here. We're going to fire this sucker up. Smash the like button, boys and girls. Says Max Rank. You got it, man. Hey, do you think we could hit 321 likes this stream? We'll see. Let's see if we can hit 321 likes just because we're in a 321 XLR. So if you haven't already, hit that like button for 321 for Toliss A321. I have a proposal for you guys. I'll get to it here in a second. Dimitri says, V1, since you are on the topic, do you happen to know what the optimal landing CG for the plane is? I hear it makes a hell of a difference when landing flare. So, Dimitri, for the XLR, no. I don't know any specific CG numbers for landing. And I can imagine that you are speaking the correct language because I know there's definitely weight changes with the XLR, and I know with that change in the flap configuration, your AOA is definitely going to be different on the approach. So I don't have any XLR data for you for the CG, optimum CG. As far as the normal Airbuses and like the normal NEOs that we fly, your CG is going to be pretty much is from when you take off, when you input your numbers for takeoff, it's already planning your landing CG, and it's changing through as you burn fuel and the CG shifts. It already knows where it's going to be for the approximate landing phase. There's a little trick that you can use to see exactly if the weights are matching up by looking at your VLS and your max weight on the ECAM, but that's for a lot more in-depth discussion later on. But as far as XLR data points for CG, unfortunately, I don't really have that for you yet. Maybe as more information comes available on the XLR, we'll get more into detail. But when I had that Airbus engineer on the jump seat, he told me, hey, if you take off with this sucker in the green, you're going to land in the green. So granted, we were in a CEO option, we weren't in a NEO, but I mean, Airbus has done such a fantastic job at really making these airplanes user-friendly, pilot-friendly. So that was his words exactly. We also talked about that engine starting sequence, but he said, hey, take off with it in the green, you'll land in the green, it'll burn fuel correctly, and you'll be good to go. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Here we're talking to an Airbus engineer who just says, yeah, it's good, just put it in the green, you'll be good to go. So I was kind of expecting a more technical answer than that. All right, top altitude, we're going to take it up to 360 initially. Let's go ahead and get the bleeds on. We no longer need you. Turn that over. Let's go ahead and remove external power. Let's go ahead and drive away from the airplane. Oh, they're not set to drive. We'll just go ahead and hide them. Hide all of you guys. And APU bleed is on. We don't need the econ flow. Okay. Before we start engines, I want to talk to you guys about the dual cooling switch. So we're actually going to start getting into some differences here. So you guys know that I love Pratt & Whitney's over the Leaps. One of the biggest differences from a pilot's perspective, let me take a sip of coffee here. One of the key differences between the Leaps and the Pratt & Whitney's are is the dual cooling function of the Pratt & Whitney. Now, the Pratt & Whitney is a fan drive geared system, FTGS or whatever. We'll talk about that later. But there is some with the Pratt & Whitney. It operates at a very high temperature, internal temperature. So what can happen is when metal gets hot, it expands. When it cools, it contracts. Now, if you have uneven cooling of this, I'm going to call it, it's called the Bode rotor phenomenon. But if you have uneven cooling of metal components of the engine, you can actually warp them and cause damage to the airframe. So what you have to do with the Pratt & Whitney is do something that's called dual cooling. And dual cooling is actually a newer function to the Pratts. When they first came out, they didn't even have the dual cooling. You had to literally sit there, let the engine motor cool itself, start up, and then you would have to motor the second engine separately. Watch that. I mean, it would take 7-8 minutes to start up. And if you push back into an alley where it was busy, you would definitely be holding up traffic. Henrik Hansen, thank you so much, man, for the super sticker there. He says, cool deal. I appreciate your support on the channel, man. Thank you. So I'm going to read you from the Airbus, from my Airbus manual about the dual cooling, and then I'm going to kind of decipher exactly what is happening behind the engine here. So engine cooling, before start, automatic or manual, or before manual dry crank cycle, which you're really never going to dry crank your engines in the A321 in X-plane, the FADEC can command an automatic dry cranking or engine cooling sequence to prevent any potential bowed rotor condition. So that's what we were talking about. It's the differences when this metal cools. If it cools unevenly, it can actually bow out and cause damage. So to prevent that, we have to cool them equally. During the engine cooling sequence, the FADEC logic limits the maximum N2 to around 10%. I'm sorry, maximum N2 around 10%. So you're going to see that it's going to populate and it's going to say dual cooling, and it will go up to, but not above 10%. You want to make sure you don't go above 10%, which I've never seen it go above 10%. Engine cooling time will depend on the engine temperature at shutdown, the length of time the engine has been shut down, the current ambient temperature and the engine oil temperature. So there's a lot of different factors that go into what and how long the engine cooling sequence is going to be for the Pratt & Whitney. It's not just going to be a standard cooling sequence every time you start up or whatnot. Now, I don't know exactly how Toliss has modeled it in the sim and within the limitations of the simulator, but basic things to look at is it's going to depend on oil temperature greater than 30 C and the outside air temperature and the pressure altitude. And there's a graph that we have in our charts, and basically that will determine how long the cooling sequence is going to take. The FADEC takes into account previous dry cranking operation to reduce engine cooling time during the subsequent engine start. So if you cool the engine and then you start up and then you shut down and you start up again, your dual cooling time may be different. It already takes that into account. I'm trying to pull out any more highlights here from my book for you guys. When the engine cooling process is completed, the cooling indication and the expected engine cooling time disappear. So the whole theory behind dual cooling is to reduce the time that it takes to start engines, but you do have to, the engines will be cooled. They have to cool them equally. So sometimes dual cooling is actually not available. That's for discussion later on. Golden State Aviation says, I prefer the Pratt & Whitneys, but there is one video on the LEAP A321 NEO that they produce an engine war. They do, the LEAPs do produce a nice little engine sound for sure, but I think the Pratts produce a nice sound too. Morgan says, does this mean you're in a whole new world of problems if your dual cooling failures? No. So if dual cooling fails or is not available, that's okay. You'll still be able to start up the engine. They're just going to have to cool independently. So let's go ahead and call for pushback here, and then we're going to start up and we're going to get out of here. It's 14:45. Our takeoff time is 1500 Z. So let's get it rolling here.
Hey, Captain, let me know where you want this thing.
That looks perfect to me, man.
Great news, Captain. Your tow's coming.
All right. Probably should have ran a checklist here, but that's okay. We're not really doing back-to-work stuff. We're just talking engine and NEO. So we'll see how it pops up here. But I remember before dual cooling came out on the Pratts, you would push back into an alley in I don't know, Chicago is one where you got busy alleys. If you're going into, I'm trying to think of alley, LA, where we are right now, you could block the alley. I mean, it just, to start up both motors, if you had to wait 30 seconds for one engine to cool and then go through its 60-second startup time or however long it takes, and then you got to do the same exact thing for the second engine. Say you can't taxi single engine because you have contaminated airport surfaces. You got to start them both up there. It could take a long time, and people would actually get frustrated. I remember listening to guys complaining about, "Hey, can I move that?
Looks
move
like
that
the doors
NEO?"
and hatches are closed, and we're ready to connect.
Cam321 says, "Captain, do you know if the BSS updated to include NEO sounds as well?" As far as I know, I'm not aware of any BSS updates to the NEO version. We are running all default sounds straight out of the Toliss updates, so I'm unaware of any BSS updates for NEO or anything like that. Can you talk about the NEO TCAS modes? TCAS? Yeah, we can talk about TCAS a little bit later on. Right, Carter Joel says it's only for engine start. Okay, and then that's another topic. So dual cooling is only a function of the aircraft on the ground. Let's say you lose an engine in flight and you need to restart it. You will not have cooling in flight. This is only an on-ground
Welcome aboard, Captain. Tow's
system.
connected. Bypass pins inserted. Go and kill the parking brake when you're ready to go.
Right. All right, everything else is good. Let's go ahead and get the beacon on. Let me just make sure my flow is good. Windows sort of slides close and lock, beacon on, blah, blah, blah. Brakes release, you're clear to push.
Here comes the pushback. Light them up.
All right. All right, we'll clear the gate here.
Quit blinding
Quit
me
blinding
with your
me.
taxi light. Turn it off.
Oh, my bad. Maybe that's why he just pushed me into the jet bridge. Where's this guy going? Look at that. Look at that sun coming up in the background. Aviation has Finance. What's going on, man? He says, how are you today? I'm excited for the early streams. Me too, man. I'm excited. I hope you guys are ready to talk Airbus the length of the stream. And then we're also going to be doing some real life Airbus study systems in cruise as well. Z Muffin Man, he says, although still in beta, I think the Toliss NEO still has many CEO systems like features such as McDo software, old weather radar, and electrical bus changes when you flash GPU to APU. You know, the 320 NEO, I believe, still flashes when you do a power transfer. I mean, it's not as severe, but you can still hear it switch over. The McDo software is slightly different than what you would see on a brand new Airbus out of the factory. But, I mean, the changes are very minute. The radar, that is one thing, though, that I don't know. I thought I saw that would be changed in the future. This multi-scan radar mode is not in the NEO aircraft. You have a... I actually prefer this radar, believe it or not, over the new radars that are out. I'm trying to think of the name for that new radar. I thought I took a screenshot of it here on my notes. Well, I don't care what's new in photos. I just want to see... because I've also been studying, for going back to work, and I was going over the radar and radar systems. I guess I didn't screenshot it, but either way, yeah, there's a name for that new... This is a multi-scan versus what the new radars are. The new ones are actually simpler to operate, but you can't turn them off. So they got to be on for the whole flight. Like this one, you can shut off the radar if you're flying, and if it's clearing a million. I prefer being able to just shut the radar off and don't take any more radar radiation than necessary. But the new ones, you can't. It's on all the time. It's either on or off. You can turn it off on your ND, but it's still pinging. Gina often says, I meant light up the engines, not my
Just
my
about
retinas.
done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
All right, brake set, you're clear to disconnect.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
All right, let's go ahead and start it up here. I'm going to go ignition start. I don't even know. Let's see what happens here. Dual cooling is on. Are we going to require dual cooling? We may not even require it. Let's go ahead and crank engine 1. There we go. So, check this out. Dual cooling, it's going to go up to maximum 10%, and the timer begins. This is really... I think this is so cool when we do it in real life, because the only other airplane that I know that does like dual motoring, I think the 777 can do it. I wonder if the 350 can do it. But you feel like a big airplane when you're sitting there and you're motoring both engines at the same time. You can see that N1 blade is not even barely moving. This is just an N2 10%.
And we're disconnected. Signal and pin on the left. Take it easy and have a safe flight.
All right, thanks for the smooth push, man. We'll see you next time. There we go. See, now dual cooling is over. N2 is on the rise. This one is spooling down. And the engine 1 is starting. Now, we're going to listen to the first start from the cockpit. Let me make sure my sounds are set. And like I said, we all love BSS sound packs, but there's a lot of stuff that you hear in a BSS pack, or even just any enhanced sound pack, that is definitely enhanced compared to the real thing. These airplanes are extremely quiet, especially up front. I mean, you don't hear very much at all up front. There we go. We got a power transfer. What do we have for start time? There's our veil. Look at that, minute 12. That's pretty good. So we got a good start on engine 1. Very quiet, which is pretty realistic. Pretty realistic, man. All right, I'm going to turn up the sim sounds, and then we're going to start engine 2 from outside so we can hear that one spool up. We're clear. Go ahead and fire up engine 2. Hear that bleed switch over. I love that look of that Pratt & Whitney fan blade, man. There we go. Golden State says it kind of sounds like or reminds me of the Max when it motor until 26%. There you go. So I haven't flown any Max stuff in the sim yet, but I know I've actually, the first time I dual motored or dual cooled the NEO, I took a picture of the Ecam. I was like, this is cool. I feel like a big airplane. All right, here we go. Engine start is complete. I love these flap sounds. I almost like these flap sounds better than the BSS flap sounds. Doing a flaps 1 takeoff. Speaking of flaps, you'll notice now on their 321 CEO variant, you have a double slotted Fowler flap on the trailing edge of the wing. The 319 has a single slot, as does the 321 XLR. We have a single slotted flap now on the back. So that is a difference, a physical difference of the airplane, is you're missing that slot there. And that is to change, that has to do with the extra weight of the aircraft, the extra fuel capacity of the airplane. And this is something that I wasn't 100% sure on. Maybe someone knows in chats, but I believe the XLR, they actually stretched the front edge of the wing, the leading edge. So it is physically a little bit fatter from leading edge to trailing edge than a normal 321. That, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, though. I'm sure one of you guys in chat will correct me, but I thought I read that somewhere. I was trying to find all the information on the XLR that I could find. Since no one's really flying the XLR in real life right now anyway, it's all kind of, it just got to dig for it in the research phase. But all right, we got 2 good starts. That's good. We go ahead and turn that off. Dual cooling push button can come off. I think we're ready to taxi. Taxi light can come on. Brakes released. Our takeoff time is in 6 minutes, so we are ready to go. Let's zoom in here. Oh yeah. Did you guys hear that little? I'm gonna stop the airplane. Very cool. All right, so I've said it before. When I taxi a NEO in real life, I think I actually burn more gas than I do when I taxi a CEO variant, because when you spool up, when you get that low hum from the engine spooling up the fan, it's got to do with the reduced speed on the 3-to-1 ratio. We'll talk about that in flight as well. But you hear, let's see if we can hear it from the cockpit. Yep, you hear that little ooh. That's very much like a 777 in my opinion. So it makes you, it just sounds super cool. So what I tend to do in real life is I'll come to a stop where I'll really slow it down, then add thrust, just because I love that sound. It's so cool, and very unique to the NEO as well. What flight sim is this? This is X-Plane 11, man. X-Plane 11. All right, let's go ahead and run flight control check here. Full up, full down, neutral. Full left, full right. Neutral, you can see our ailerons are drooped as they should be. Did I bind my switch? Yes, I did. Full left, full right, and neutral. Let's get back on the center line here. Auto brakes max. Takeoff config. Radar PWS on. TARA. Ping the flight attendants in the back. Flight attendants prepare for takeoff. And cabin ready, all green. Let's get ready to get out of here. Hot shots and AV1. I sent you an earlier version of Pratt & Whitney 1100G. I made for fly-by-wire. By the way, the Leap does make the same thing, or is it just Pratt & Whitney? I've never seen the Leap do that sound. So I don't actually know about the Leap. I know it makes a startup sound, but I can't recall if the Leaps. I know it's the most common is the Pratt & Whitney to hear that whale sound coming out. Remember the chrono this time, Teen Vodka. We'll try to get that chrono, man. Dimitri says, I think TSS are giving BSS a run for its money and definitely better than the FT Sim ones. I agree. So about the sounds, the FT Sim Neopack is very good. Also check this out, guys. Brake Max. So this is new. This is for XLR. So the XLR, I know I'm talking all over here, but there's so much information I want to try to cover. This Brake Max is a proper feature for the XLR. You have beefed brakes and landing gear on the 321. 321 in general has a little bit bigger tires and stuff, but definitely beef the braking system. Brake Max is indicated here on the PFD as that you wouldn't see on the CEO variant. But as far as back to the sounds, the FT Sim Neo sounds are very fun. Like they are extremely cinematic. And which some people like that. Personally, I kind of like that too. I like having a nice cinematic sound because when you can't feel the airplane moving beneath you, you can't smell the airplane, you're not in the cockpit, we lose immersion naturally being a desktop flight simulator. But having, cinematic sounds sometimes can kind of help with that. But it's not necessarily realistic. A lot of sounds in the cockpit are a lot less cinematic or enhanced than you guys may think, and you may actually be disappointed. As far as engine noise, you throw a 321 takeoff power, it's pretty darn quiet, man. How do you steer the rudder? So I actually have my yoke as my honeycomb yoke as a tiller axis. But you can use the nose wheel with the rotor. Like right now, I can see that center line there. I'm using my rotor pedals just a little bit to move that nose a tad. But if you want to do a hard turn, you got to use the tiller, or you can bind it to yaw, I believe. But I have it bound to tiller on my yoke. We're kind of picking up right where we left off with the LAX here. Love this airport. I also love Portland. Whoa! Okay. We totally missed all the taxiways here. Don't mind me, guys. That's what happens when you're looking at the engines. That's right, no harm, no foul. Nobody saw it. Moving on here. Siraj B says, I hope your landings are like your voice, buttery. I think that's the first time someone said I have a buttery voice, man. I think that's a compliment. Golden State said, this may sound weird, but one of my favorite smells is the smell of the classic airplanes and World War II warships. There you go, man. Dude, that's very interesting that you bring that up, Golden State. World War II warships. When I've been on a couple, you know, the Pearl Harbor Museum and all that, they do have a very unique smell. Very interesting that you bring that up, man. Good observation. What does it say above the N1 on the upper ECAM? So another difference is for the NEOs, you're going to get a PAX indicating here on the upper ECAM. That is normal. PAX are operational. That is normal. That's what you're looking to see. All right, we'll pull up here and actually, let's see. 14:59, that's takeoff time. Let's go. Let's light it up. See if I can do a cinematic lineup here. I love Airbus, man. I don't know how you could hate on Airbus. Such a beautiful airplane. MD80 has the smell also. You got it, Jeremy. You're right, man.
Subscriber ahead. Look.
Thank you for the subscribe. Appreciate it, man. Well, if our landings are anything like our lineup, I think we're going to be looking pretty good. All right, it's takeoff time. Let's just take that in. LA in the background. XLR. Man. Airbus 1000, 25 right. RNAV to a Docker. You're clear for takeoff. We're going full yoga. All my members in chat, I'm going to need maximum yoga power in the chat here when we take off. What I'm going to do is, actually, hold on, before I take off. I've got that set up ready. Okay, good. What I will do is I'm going to go full yoga from the engine view, just so we can hear it, and then I'm going to go to the cockpit, and we're going to try to get a nice smooth takeoff. So here we go. Maximum yoga's in chat. Spool them up 50. Oh, man. All right, man, Toga, SRS runway. Auto thrust blue. 80 knots. Thrust set. Neutral by 100. Pure power, baby. V1, rotate. Nice and easy on that rotation. Watch that tail strike. Positive rate. Gear up. Nav. Fly by. Listen to thrust reduction here. Nice. Actually, let's go autopilot on because I want to. This is too. Oh man, we just entered the clouds. Come on, really? All right. Anyway, back up front here. What do we got for outside air temp? Plus 10. We're right on the limit as we bust through this layer. Speed all constraint SAR, leveling 3,000. Speed is increasing. We got a VFE, or I'm sorry, the S speed there, right about 218 knots. Oh, there's our constraint. Thrust, climb, climb. Flap 0 after takeoff checklist. That is a sweet departure. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn down the sim a little bit. But that's what I'm talking about, guys. You know I've been a huge advocate of the BSS pack, but Toliss and TSS really did a great job with these NEO sounds. This is all default. This is right out of the box. This is what you guys get when you purchase the add-on here. Man, too bad we can't see LA. We got all those clouds coming up this morning. Start the chrono, Carta says. There you go, man. I forgot. Just for you, Carta. Chrono engaged. Alright, we are thrust, climb, auto thrust. Let's see if we can cut the corner here. Let's go direct. Let's go direct rugby. Cut the corner. Insert. 360 in the turn. Let's get another flyby shot because these flyby sounds are pretty darn good as well. I mean, say what you want. Those sounds are pretty darn juicy right out of the box, man. Pretty darn juicy right out of the box. That flyby sound is... It's pretty damn good. I'd put it up there top 5 for sure. Maybe top 3. I mean, you can't tell me that's not top 5 for sure, maybe top 3 flyby sounds in X-Plane for default sounds, like for default. All right, there's 8.8. Climbing up, we're still going through layers here. What's our temp? -4 or +4. We'll just keep it up for now. There's 9.2, climbing to 360. Get ready to go through 10. Let's go ahead and get our lights off here. Ding the flight attendants. Bing. There's 10,000 feet. Let's go ahead and see the acceleration performance. Now, this is one thing I talked about in the A320 NEO mod, that when you reach 10,000, the airplane almost levels off before it climbs. Let's see what this airplane does. I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the left so we can kind of monitor what's happening. So there we go. We see the acceleration. Airplane is accelerating, and we're still climbing 1,200 feet a minute. That's very realistic. That is what it should do right there. That's kind of what you're looking for. Looks like our cost index has got us right about 310 knots on the climb out. Not bad at all. Have I tried P3D? Yes, I have, man. Nairo says top 3, honestly. You got it, man. Anthony Anderson says, I can't not buy it at this point. There you go, man. That's what I'm saying. This airplane has a lot of stuff. So what we're going to do now is let's go ahead and clean up, and then we're going to talk more NEO here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the engine anti-ice off. We're through 10,000 feet. I'm going to lower the sounds just because we don't need to listen to it now as the whole flight here was fun cinematic purposes. I'm going to turn everything down a little bit. We'll keep the engines right about there. Or system, what's environmental volume? Wind noise, I'll turn that down. So realistically, in climb, that's about what you hear right there. It's that quiet up front. I mean, you in climb thrust, and especially at cruise thrust, you really don't hear much. So I'm going to set my audio settings right about there. Let me turn up these settings here. So hopefully the audio levels should be pretty balanced now. That looks good. All right, let's go ahead and jump to the wing view, and I want to talk a little bit more about differences. Oh man, I don't know which. Oh yeah, that's the shot right there. The sun getting ready to come up over the horizon. They forgot to color the center of the airplane symbol on the PFD. Jeremy, so we'll talk about that. I don't know if they did, or if you go into the flight director, it goes away. It's interesting because it looked black when you're on the ground. Golden State says it's released on 15. Yet it is. Dimitri says they can fly their toy planes over at Microsoft Flight Simulator all they want. For now, I'll stick with this and the I&I Airbus A300. Dimitri, I'm telling you, man, like I said, X-Plane needed something new to keep it in the conversation, I think, honestly, when the FS2020 dropped, because it is such a beautiful platform over there. But you have the release of the A300, and then you have a full-blown NEO release here for the Toliss. I mean, why would you not want to be part of this? So I totally agree, man. Let's talk a little bit more about the Pratt & Whitney versus the LEAP engines, okay? So I know I say the Pratt & Whitneys are the way to go. Ironically, the CFM actually, on paper, can produce about 2,000 pounds more thrust than the pure power 1100s can. But there's a couple other things that I like about the Pratt & Whitneys, and I think that once I explain it to you, I think you guys might start flying with the Pratt & Whitneys more so than the LEAPs. All right, so the first thing is the sheer size. So the overall size of the Pratt & Whitney diameter, 2.06 meters, compared to the CFM LEAP, the LEAP 1A at 1.98 meters. So we always like, just like with sounds, we like cinematic enhanced sounds in a simulator, right? Because sometimes it makes up for the lack of smell, feel, and the real stuff that you would have if you're actually in the airplane. So sometimes enhanced things are better. I think having a bigger engine slung under that wing makes things look cooler. And I tell you what, doing the walk around on these airplanes, I can stand up. I'm 6'1". I can pretty much stand up in that Pratt & Whitney cowling. It is a massive, massive engine. Not to say that the LEAPs are small, but size does go to the Pratt & Whitney for diameter there. So again, 2.06 meters versus 1.98 on the LEAPs. All right, here's another interesting thing. Bypass ratio. So the ratio of bypass air to compressed air, or I guess I should say high pressure air, is also outdone in the Pratt & Whitney. We have a 12-to-1 bypass ratio. I mean, that is insane. And you can definitely see this when you're on the ground, and I talked about this, I think, in one of the NEO mod videos where we were just doing walkarounds. The bypass, so basically the fan section is the big fan in the front. Then you have the compressor section out back. And the amount of bypass air, you can literally have a full-blown conversation. If somebody's standing on this side of the engine and somebody's standing on this side of the engine, you could practically whisper to each other because you can see so much bypass section on this Pratt & Whitney. It's insane. So that's, 12-to-1 is pretty good. The LEAP 1A are 11-to-1, so it is significantly more, but it is less than the Pratt & Whitney. So again, I'm going... That's 2 for the Pratts, in my opinion. Plus, I'm partial to the Pratt & Whitney because, I don't know, they look awesome. Now, speaking on aesthetics, so the accessory gearbox is located on the LEAP 1A on the lower, if you're looking at the engine, it's on the lower right-hand side, and you got that LEAP bump. Now, as biased as I am to the Pratts, I do think that this is pretty cool. It's a very unique feature of of that LEAP engine, is having that gearbox bump there on the lower side of the engine. It is modeled in the Toliss. I think it in the Microsoft 2021 it's there as well. It looks a little aggressive in Microsoft 2020. I don't know if it's a modeling thing, but I do have to give a point to the LEAPs for that external bump. I think it looks pretty cool. So what are we at? We're at 2-to-1 Pratt & Whitneys, in my opinion. All right, so continuing on. Before we get to the next point, we'll basically need to talk about what makes these NEO engines, both the LEAPs and the Pratts, so much more efficient. Both companies kind of go at it at different ways, and without getting into extreme detail, which it's over my head even. I mean, it's the amount of, I was trying to research this, it's pretty insane. But the Pratt & Whitneys go about having a fan drive gear system. So the fan drive gear system basically allows both fans to spin at their optimum speed. And it reduces the N1 fan speed by 3-to-1. So you have a lower fan speed but a higher N1 speed. And I'm trying to explain that without getting really confusing, and even I kind of get blown away by it, and I had to read it about 10 times. But that's kind of how they start their efficiency, is you get all components of the engine running at their optimum speed. You're going to start saving energy, start saving fuel, right? Because it's less work on the engine. It's at that peak performance, you get that maximum fuel or that maximum performance out of the engine with the lower fuel burn. Now, the LEAPs, they fight back with the MTC or modulated turbine cooling system, and it basically relocates the stage 10 pressure high pressure bleed air to like stage 1 or something. I don't know. It was very technical, so they each have their own ways of going about making these engines efficient. That's what I'm trying to say, is they both have their own ways of doing it, and they're both different. So Pratt & Whitney has a different way of making its engine efficient versus the LEAP, but they are both very efficient engines. So that one we just kind of, we'll put it at a draw. The fuel nozzles, so I think this might be a factor because of the thrust. I know that LEAP can produce a little bit more thrust. The fuel nozzles, they actually have one more nozzle. They have 19 fuel nozzles in the LEAPs versus the Pratts. We only have 18 fuel nozzles in the engine. And let's go ahead and switch sides here. Let's see what's going on over here. Oh, we probably should select standard as well. We'll go ahead and set standard at a 240. I'm going to turn down my X-plane quite a bit here, and we're going to go outside, not blow any ears out. How's that? All right, hopefully that's not too loud. So, fuel nozzles, that's got to go to the LEAPs, but I mean, I've never really had an issue with only 18 fuel nozzles in the Pratts, and I can only imagine that has to do something with fuel requirements because that LEAP does produce a little bit more thrust. That probably needs a little bit more fuel. All right, but here comes one of the coolest parts, no pun intended, to the Pratts, I think, is it has... This Pratt & Whitney engine runs at very high temperatures, and both NEO engines do. They both run at significant higher temperatures between the LEAPs and the Pratts. But the way that the Pratt & Whitney engineers have come up with keeping the engine cool and lubricated and the oils cool is pretty incredible. So we're familiar with the IDG, or if you've been around this channel, you're familiar with the IDG, the Integrated Drive Generator. And basically what that does is it's your generator portion of the engine. The engine spins, and it spins, goes through gearbox reduction, and it spins your IDG, and you get power from that engine. Now, those components can get very hot. So what do? We take the oil that lubricates those components, and then we run it next to very cold fuel. This is called an IDG fuel oil heat exchange. So the hot oil is running next to the cold fuel, and this is all on a very basic level of explanation, right? They're not mixing. The fluids don't actually come together. But you take the heat from the oil and the cool temperatures from the fuel, and you interchange them. So you take the fuel to cool the oil warms the fuel. That's pretty standard amongst most engines. Pratt & Whitney doesn't only have that for the cooling. They have an air oil heat exchanger. They have a fuel oil heat exchanger. We have the IDG oil, which is what we talked about, the IDG oil, which is pretty standard, IDG oil heat exchange. Then they also have IDG oil and fuel exchangers. So you have 4 cooling methods for these Pratt engines. Now, that's something that you go over in ground school and you really dissect how everything is kept as cool. And without getting too technical and boring everybody, just know that it's pretty cool stuff that you can see how these engineers have come up with solutions to their problems of these NEOs running extremely high temperatures. And instead of just having, one heat exchanger or 2, you've got 4 separate methods of keeping the engine temperatures within their operating limits. So, anyway. So that's a little bit about my Pratt & Whitney versus LEAPs. I think that, especially European operators, I think a lot of you guys like running the LEAPs just because the LEAPs are pretty common over there in Europe. I think Lufthansa may become my favorite European carrier because they run IE engines and they run Pratt & Whitneys as well. So I think Lufthansa is going up my list of favorite airlines out there. But you look at the size difference, bypass ratio, pretty sweet stuff, man. So I'm going Pratt & Whitney's. That's my choice. I will say from experience in real world, on-the-job experience with the Pratts. I will not sugarcoat it. You know, they have had their issues. There have been issues with these engines, so much so that we had an emergency bulletin come out saying that you have to limit your flight altitude below 30,000 feet, which basically took away the whole point of having NEO motors, because, of course, the higher you go, the more efficient the engine runs. So because of this, we had to stay low. It basically there was no point in having NEOs. It just canceled out the efficiency. So there were a lot of problems with the Pratts as they came off the line for quite some time. We had a couple delaminations, engine failures, shutdowns, high vibration. Matter of fact, and I talked about this when we first flew the NEO mod, when I had, well, the first couple months, even the first year of flying the Pratts when they came off the line, every time I got ready for takeoff, I would pull up the emergency high vibration checklist on my iPad, on my EFB. Even before getting to the runway, I was like, it was so common to have a high vibe in the NEO that people were getting them all the time. So that's how common it was. I had a couple of high vibes. It's really, depending on what's causing the vibration, it's not that bad of an issue. You can reduce thrust, get the vibes back under control. I never had to do an in-flight shutdown on it, but we had guys that had to do actual in-flight shutdowns, or some of them just idled them. But it was that common. So the Pratts definitely did have growing pains coming off the line. I think they are much better now, but you know, when I go back to work in January, if I'm sitting on the pointy end of a Pratt & Whitney powered Airbus, I'm probably still going to have my high vibe checklist out there ready to go. But anyway, Carter Jewel says, don't forget the fan count is different between the Pratt & Whitney and LEAP. I think the Pratt has 2 more blades. There you go, Carter. I believe Lufthansa also ordered the LEAPs too, so they have both. There you go. So I'm good with them having both. I think they're still going to be my favorite airplane. But there you go. That's another reason why Pratt looks a little bit cool. You got more blades. I think that's pretty cool. You got a lot of blades in there. So also more blades to sling out when you have a detached or a metal fatigue. Dimitri says Aegean runs solely IAEs, except their last 2 321s and 3 A320s. Dimitri, all right, I hear. What about what does Aegean run for NEOs? Does Aegean have any NEO aircraft? I do. I gotta say, I love the Aegean paint job. I know it's a white paint job, but it's kind of got that off-white. Well, the old one anyway. The new one is pretty clean too. But when we were doing our Greece tour, and I was just kind of researching Aegean Airlines, and I was looking at the pilots, I was like, man, they get to wear beards and everything. It just looked so good. Like, if I were to go fly for a carrier, that would be one of my top, or go fly for a foreign carrier, that would be one of my top places to go. It just looked like a pretty neat place to be a part of. Plus, you get to fly in the Greek islands and all around there. Just absolutely beautiful. So, anyway. Cobalt Skies, he says, I remember us having a chat about this back then. Yeah, Cobalt Skies. So he is, guys, if you aren't familiar, Cobalt Skies, he actually he works with Toliss, for Toliss. And yeah, I remember chatting with him in Discord about that. There you go. Yeah, so it's, and it's even in cruise, which is kind of weird. When you go to cruise power from climb power, you get this, and the airplane just this harmonic vibration. And I don't know if that's since been remedied. I think it's just kind of the part of having such a big fan blade out there on the N1. But either way, yeah, that's funny. That's funny you brought that up. I forgot that we talked about that. Golden State says, any tips for someone starting their PPL training book study habits? I start next spring in the 150. Golden State, that's awesome, man. Fantastic. If there's anything I can do to help you out, man, don't be afraid to DM me in chat and you know, ask for my advice. I'd love to help you with your training. As far as books, you're going to get all of that stuff from your instructor, most likely. They're probably going to tell you exactly what to read. I will recommend one book. It's the Everything Explained. Now, Everything Explained series, and I believe they have since come out with different series of this book. I think there's one for Instrument Pilot or Everything Explained Commercial Pilot. I don't know if they have one for Private Pilot. You may have to do some Googling, but I'm pretty sure it's Everything Explained for the Professional Pilot. I'll do a quick research, and then if you DM me Golden State, I'll get you the link to the exact one. But even though it says Professional Pilot or Commercial Pilot, I can't remember which, it covers everything that you need to know, even in your PPL. So that book is just the way it explains things like the airspace system, and I'm not sure if I imagine you're training in the U.S. since you're Golden State Aviation, but if you're training in Europe, you may want to look at a different source. But they just have a really good way of explaining complex topics, and it really lays it out easy, because you're going to read a lot of books like the Gleim and whatever books your flight school or instructor recommend that are very technical, and they can sometimes be a little overwhelming. So I would recommend the Everything Explained series, and I believe it's for the professional pilot. Wow, it's much quieter in here. Simon JC, what's going on, man? He says, I love your content. Last stream, the autopilot kicked off during cruise. Have you ever had the autopilot kick off on a real flight? Simon, yes, I have actually. I might save that story for the podcast, for the Viewing After Dark podcast. I have a specific story where that happened, almost exactly like we saw in that stream. That what happened in that last stream, we had a weather reload, and I got a big wind shift, and we oversped, and the autopilot kicked off, which is real life situation as well. And because that just goes to show you the modeling of the 321 Toliss did. So on that last stream, I might have to find it and clip it. We had a weather change. X-plane reloaded the weather, wind shift. The airplane then oversped. So what happens in real life, and as what happened in the sim, the airplane oversped, autopilot kicked off, it went into its high-speed protection. So what it does is then begins to pitch up. Pitches up, tries to get that airspeed back so you don't overstress the airframe. Very important. Happens in real life. I've experienced that one time in real life. I will save that story for the podcast series, but I have also had it kick off for just severe turbulence, or like very, very moderate turbulence. I've had the autopilot kick off. Most recently, I believe I was in New York. I think it was LaGuardia. We were getting vectored all the way around, and it was just, it was rough. We ended up breaking out. It was a semi-high overcast. I think it was like 600 or 800 feet, so nothing near minimums, but we broke out, and I think we were landing with about a 30 knot crosswind. It was up there, and I'm looking for the runway, and it was from the right, so the airplane was weather vaned into the right, and I'm like, I don't see the runway. Then I looked over here. Runway was in this window here, because the crosswind was so severe, and this is at 800 feet, or under. I know it was under 1,000 feet, but it was so. You had a severe crosswind there up at 800 feet. I'm like, holy crap, man! This airplane is crabbing like crazy. So, but yeah, I did have a kick off during that flight. But I do have the story I'll save for the podcast. Let's take a look, see how everything's doing. Check this out, guys. Look at our fuel flow right now. We are burning 1850 a side. Wow. In a 321 at 360 doing 7.9 Mach. Let's take a look here at some other stuff. Recommended optimum is 363. So we're going to stay at 363 right now. We're going to basically fly this flight in optimum cruise altitude. We can go up to 38 if we needed to, but right now the airplane is at 36, and the 363 is the optimum. You can see right about 20, should see about right around 2,400 pounds per side range, which, we're flying a big airplane to be burning fuel that low. Pretty fantastic. You can see it's kind of going up and down because it's working with the speed, but awesome stuff. What is our predicted fuel on landing? We're still planning to land with almost 6,000 pounds of fuel, guys. That is pretty incredible. Let me see. What was our... With 54 minutes extra gas. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. Let's see. Golden State says, thanks, I'll look in again. Yeah, man, definitely. Check it out. Everything Explained for the professional pilot, I believe, is the one that you want. Captain Tom, what's going on, man? Good to see you in chat, dude. Gaming Ninja says I should get some Neos for my virtual airline. That fuel flow. It's pretty incredible, man. I still get shocked when I get a dispatch paper or dispatch release, and I look at the required gate fuel, and I'm like, wow, really? That's it? And then I'm like, oh yeah, we're in a Neo. So that's it is that much of a difference, guys. In fact, when some U.S. carriers are taking delivery from Airbus, they've actually eliminated a fuel stop coming across going westbound. So that's how much fuel this airplane will save. that's a pretty incredible feat of engineering. And if anyone wants to see the Pratt & Whitney 1100G completed in sim, posting it into the V1 Discord now. There you go. Thank you, Cobalt Skies. I appreciate it, guys. So he's posting the 1100 completed in sim, posting it into the Discord. Awesome, man. Appreciate it, Cobalt. Mike plays how high am I? It should say up there on top of the screen. We're at 36,000 feet. But awesome. All right. So we've kind of talked about the NEO. We've talked about dual cooling. Again, it's only a function on the ground. I was looking at some more of my FADEX stuff here. No, that's it. All right, so if you guys have any more NEO questions, definitely now the time to get them out. I know we got Cobalt Skies in chat, but I think we should do some. Airbus studying here as we settle into our cruise flight going up the West Coast. Let me have a sip of coffee and get my study guide out. So if you want to see that NEO, NEO stuff that Cobalt Skies is posting, it is in the NEO Media, NEO Media section only of the Discord. Buddy plays, man. Settle down, and you're gonna get smacked, man. What was the name of the book? I'm going to just double check it right now, but it's Everything Explained for the Professional Pilot. Yeah, that's the one. So it's Everything Explained. And even if you're going for your PPL or your instrument rating, and check out if they have different variations of it, but it's going to include all that stuff that you need to know. I know I used that book a lot when I was teaching, in fact, because sometimes if you just teach in technical terms all the time, depending on who your student is, it could just go over their head. Everybody learns differently. Some people need a very simple explanation or a comparison, and some people need that super technical definition or explanation. It just depends. Everybody's wired differently. So I found that book extremely useful, even in my own use of especially the airspace system, because that can be confusing. A couple other regulations for the FAA. It's very well put out in that book, so I highly, highly recommend it. Dimitri says, are these default X-plane sky colors and cloud textures? Just point out for all those who hate textures on load 1,000. Yes, this is all, Dimitri, this is 100% default clouds, default sky colors, everything default, man. I really been looking at getting that X Enviro, but then I got to run Vulkan, and I got my sim running just fine in OpenGL, so I don't know if I'm going for it. This is 100% default sky colors, default clouds. So you bet, man. Flip back over here. As we get a little bit further north, guys, it's going to be pretty fantastic as we go over we're still over Orbix HD, but as we get up towards the northern California, Oregon area, it's absolutely fantastic. All right. Can we get a copy of your study guide, Foxtrot? Fortunately, man, I can't release that. But let's get into it. Let's talk some study guide questions here. So, again, if you're just joining the stream, actually, how are we doing on likes here? Well, 200-something likes. Guys, if you haven't already, hit that like button for me. I think we should get 321 likes on this video just because we're in that 321 NEO. Hit that like button for me. And let's go ahead and get started here. Master question files. Study guide, oral examination, Airbus 319, 320, 321, and NEO. These are real questions that I'm actually really studying for because I do have to go back to the line starting in January. I'm expected to know the answers to these questions. I will be tested on them. I will be asked in my oral. So let's go ahead and let's have some fun here in chat. I'm trying to find, let's talk about the power plant here for a little bit since we've been talking about NEOs. So here we go. This isn't, so I'm going to read you this question, and I'm also going to read you the answer. I don't expect you to know this, but this is, I just saw this one talking about the Pratt & Whitney 1100. So the question is, what is the primary difference between the IAE V2500 and the Pratt & Whitney 1100G, which is the engines that you see on screen right now, versus the standard CEO option? So the answer is the NEO Pratt & Whitney 1100 includes a fan drive gear system, FGDS, which allows the low pressure turbine to operate at higher rotational speeds for peak efficiency while the engine's fan can operate at lower speeds for optimum propulsion efficiency and lower noise levels. So that's where you get the super quiet engines, because you've got the fan operating at lower speeds for optimum propulsion and sound, but you can have that low pressure turbine to operate at high rotational speeds. So that's where you get that FDGS. Now that's also where you start getting that rotor Boeing situation, is that's what they're worried about for Boeing uneven cooling, and that's kind of where you get that cooling, dual cooling thing comes in. And actually, fun fact, the Metroliner SA227, every time you shut down the engine, you got to go like spin the props around. Not exactly rotor Boeing, but a very similar situation for cooling, or making sure the engine is not going to warp or sag. Internal components, I should say. All right, let me see if I get a question for you guys. Here we go. So I'm looking. This is a two-part answer. You guys can either put you can put one or two, the one or both of the answers if you're really smart. But here we go. With the engine mode selector in the ignition start position, what occurs when the oh, well, that's man start. We don't talk about that. We'll skip that question. Sorry, that one might be a little bit. Okay. During a normal engine start, is it required by the flight crew to abort an engine start procedure? During a normal engine start, are you required to do a manual abort? So I know it was a little bit convoluted, but we eventually got to the question. During a normal ignition or normal engine start, are you required to monitor and abort the start for any reason? Yannick Murray, what's going on, man? Welcome aboard. Vertical speed trending down might just be pressure change, and we're maintaining. We're set at standard level. Andy B says no. Foxtrot says no. The FADEC does it. Foxtrot has, and on my screen is the first to answer it with the explanation with the FADEC, and it is you guys are everyone's coming in with no. So you guys are absolutely correct. During a normal engine start, you're not required to abort, and actually, it's not recommended to do a manual abort because the FADEC, the full authority digital electronic control of the engine, will monitor the start, and if parameters get out of limitations, it will automatically abort the start, and in some cases, it will automatically go into a dry cranking sequence and to protect the engine. So it is recommended that during a normal start that you do not abort for any reason, unless there are two. Okay, so that's going to lead me into my next question. So you guys are correct. Matt Haynes says if the EGT gets too high or if the EGT overtemps, no. You actually are supposed to let it run away and go into its auto abort sequence and crank sequence if the EGT runs away. Now, this is during a normal start sequence. This is during normal. Now, if you're doing a manual start, then yes. But to throw a wrench in this question here, and this isn't even on the study guide, but I'm sure an examiner would probably ask it. He says, okay, are there any situations or circumstances at which you would manually abort an automatic engine start? So, is there any reason that you would manually abort the automatic engine start? I hear the thrust coming back. We're doing all right here. It just looks like getting some weather loaded in. The wind's shifting around there for sure. Thrust is coming back. We're doing okay. We're 360. Everything is looking good. We're still looking good. Pretty much idle thrust now there. That wind came in. Matt Haynes says, is that not classed as a normal start then? No, we'll get to it. Andy B says, engine fire. Cobalt Sky says, equipment going near the engine. Hot start. Hot start is the same as an EGT start, so no. I'll let you guys get a few more answers in. Hot start, hunk start, no. Cactus 1549, the automatic start sequence will automatically identify a hot start or hung start. There are two situations in which you would do an abort, manual abort. Igniter cutoff? No. So interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and see. Golden State says, I believe a fire is auto aborted. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm going to give you the answer right now. The two situations in which you would abort a manual abort on an automatic start is for a tailpipe fire. So if for some reason you get a blow off and you get tailpipe fire, probably going to be alerted by the ground crew in that case. So tailpipe fire or complete loss of electrical power. So let's say you are at the gate, and let's say your APU is inoperative, but you can still use bleed from the APU. So you have APU bleed, but the generator contactor for some reason is not functional on the APU. So you can use it for bleed, but you can't use it for electrics, which would be a pretty weird situation. Or your APU is completely inoperative and you're just doing a ground air start. So you have no APU and you're doing a ground air start and you're using electric power from the jet bridge. So tailpipe fire is one, and complete loss of electrical power during the start sequence. So if you're sitting at the gate doing an engine start connected to the jet bridge, and for some reason that ground power cord drops out and your APU is not running, you're not going to have any power transfer over. So that's when you would abort your automatic start sequence, is if you lose power during a normal engine start. So like I said, that could be a line contact or failure with the APU on the electrical side, or if you're using ground power to start the airplane, you would have to, and you lose it, you've got to abort the start. So those are the only two instances in which you would abort an automatic start sequence: tailpipe fire and loss of electrical power during the start. What is a tailpipe fire? Basically an engine fire coming out the back. So sometimes, I've never had one in the Airbus, knock on wood. I feel like I might have just jinxed myself. But sometimes you can get that with unburnt fuel that's left over, or sometimes I think I talked about it one time with an engineer, and basically there's some seal around the hot section, and if there's a crack in one of the seals, it's potential to pool up, and then you can, when it lights off, you can actually almost like having an afterburner. But yeah, tailpipe fire or loss of electrical power. What would happen if you didn't abort and you lose ground power? So that's an interesting question. And that would depend, Suraj B, that would depend on what part of the engine start has already, or where the engine start is when you lose power. And this is kind of one of those things where that's why you abort it, because we don't know. There's no way to know where the engine start sequence is if you lose power during the engine start. Now, if you lose power after the PMA takes over or the on-site generator takes over during the engine start sequence around 53%, then when the power drops out, it's just going to be like a hard power transfer, and you're going to have power to the airplane, even though the start sequence is not 100% complete. But if the power drops out before the PMA takes over, the on-site generator has enough, the engine's spooling enough to get the on-site generator working, you don't know where the engine is, and then you don't have any start protections. So it's for that reason that you don't have start protections that you abort the start, because you've basically gone from an automatic start to a pseudo manual start with no readings on your ECAM, and you have no idea what's happening. So that's why you abort the start. Shouldn't you switch off ground power before you start your engines? Andy B, there are situations when you have to use ground power to start. Like I said, if you can only use the APU for a bleed and not electrics, then you're going to need electrical power from somewhere to start the airplane, and that would be at the gate. Or if your APU is completely whacked out and you need to do a ground start with a huffer cart and ground power. So there are times when you start the airplane at the gate with ground power. All right, Mike, please. I'm going to need you to settle down, dude. So we're going to do that, man. I know you're excited, but we got to calm down. Full burn takeoff. All right, let's see if we can find another question here. See if I can find another engine question. A lot of these are very lengthy answers, so I'm trying not to ask those questions. Let's move on to... This is I would be very surprised. There's 3 correct answers, and I would expect it to be know all 3. I'm curious to see if you guys know these. We'll start off with an easy question. How many fire loops are installed per engine? So, what are fire loops? Fire loops are basically a piece of equipment that goes around certain parts of the engine that will detect a fire. Now, we have a certain amount of those on each engine. How many fire loops are installed on each engine? Getting a little bit of turbulence there. We got that seatbelt sign on still. We're looking good. Wow, look at that shot. J-Lo says, I just got my instrument rating, but on the second try, unfortunately, didn't pass the first check right. How do you think that would affect me in the future? J-Lo, don't sweat it, man. As long as you get it on the second try, you should be good. I don't think it's going to affect you at all, man. The first answer I get is from Foxtrot. Again, that might be... don't spam it multiple times. That's your last warning from me. But the correct answer is 2. It is 2. There are 2 fire loops for each engine. Okay, we have loop A and loop B. Which is possible to actually, and I think we had this failure in the sim in the Toliss airplane before. We had a fire loop detection fault. And basically what happens is you can actually dispatch an airplane with 1 fire loop inoperative. It's just that if that other one fails, then it becomes basically an in-flight emergency. So, yes, there are 2 per each engine, and you can actually dispatch with 1. But there you go, good. So this is the question I was going to originally ask, is where are those fire loops or heat sensors located? So we know that there's 2 on the engine. So where on the engine are the fire loops? To help you guys, I'm going to look at the engine here. We'll look at the engine. Where are the fire loops located on the engine? Mike plays, yes, the sound pack is included, man. The sound pack is included. This is default sounds from the add-on. Don't both loops have to break? Andy B, yes, they do. But you can still dispatch with 1. If they fail within a certain time of each other, then it will trigger a fire. I'll do my best to explain them here in a second, Andre. I'm trying to see what kind of guesses we get in. So if we have 2 on each engine, where would they be located? Is it bad if you run out of fuel from a technical standpoint? Like, does it damage the engines? Gosh, that's a good question. To be honest with you, Gaming Ninja, I don't know. That would be a good question for an engineer. Kind of like, you know, if you run out of fuel in your car and you have a hard time starting it after. I can't imagine that it would damage them. But that's a good question. By the combustion chamber, we got a couple. Combustion and turbine section. Pylon core engine fan. Pretty darn good there. Giving you time to Google, probably. That's what's happening. Pro Atamo 2. Calm down, my friend. So, within the engine, front and back. So, on the engine, they are located on the pylon nacelle, which is the outer part of the engine, right? The pylon nacelle over here. The engine core, the hot section of the engine, which would be a very important, that's probably most likely where you're going to get a fire, is in the core of the engine. And there's actually one there's a heat sensor in the fan section as well. So we have 2 loops per engine, and the actual sensors are mounted on the pylon nacelle, the engine core, and the fan section. Pylon nacelle is important because the pylon is subject to bleed leak. If you were to get a bleed leak situation on the pylon, it could very easily lead to a fire. So that's why you've got a heat detector on the pylon section. And then of course the other 2 are kind of self-explanatory, right? The engine core, the hottest part of the engine, that's where the combustion is happening, and then the fan section on the outer side. Now the fan section, I can only imagine maybe you have maybe you get something out of line, or maybe you throw a blade and the friction causes heat and it creates a fire. So that would be my guess on why the fan section. But the other 2, pylon nacelle specifically for bleeds, and also for the engine core where all that fire is. But yeah, could you still dispatch with an APU that doesn't produce power? Because when you lose an engine, you won't have 2 sources of power. Could you still dispatch with an APU that doesn't produce power? Yes. Ian, you can actually dispatch with an engine generator that doesn't produce power, like a IDG. Well, I wouldn't say it depends on, I guess, on the airline, but you can actually dispatch with the inoperative generator, whether it be on the engine or the APU. Now, there are several things that we have to do, and I think I did a stream. It was a lot of fun. We were starting to do some streams back in the day where I replicated failures that I had in the real airplane, and then I streamed with them. And one of them was an in-op generator. So what happens if you dispatch with an in-op generator, you basically have to test all the other generator transfers. So I'm going to try to remember this one, and I don't know, maybe there's a link to the stream, but basically we had, if I remember correctly, a generator 1 inoperative. So we dispatched with 2 generators, generator 2 and the APU. The flight had to be flown with the APU on the entire time. So you're subject to operating limitations of the APU and fuel burn from the APU. But before leaving the gate, or I should say before taxiing away after engine start, we had to do reversionary testing, which basically means we have to test all the gen ties to make sure that should we lose generator 2, the APU would pick up the load. Or should we lose the APU, that generator 2 could support the load. Now, I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble. I guess we'll just leave it. Let's see. Let's go electrical page. This might get me. Hopefully we don't get in trouble here by messing around with this. Well, let's go ahead and say Gen 1 falls offline. We now have Gen 1 off, but this is what we're transferring here. Look, AC bus 2 is now powering AC bus 1 via bus tie right here, AC Essential bus tie. And you could see that Airbus has it drawn out. AC bus 2, AC Essential bus, powered now AC bus 1. Okay, so if that's off, I don't have the generator on, I don't have the APU on, but if the APU was on, then I would disconnect Gen 2, and then you would see the APU pick up the load for both. All right, so we can go generator back on. Now what happens if you lose Gen 2? Now generator 1 is powering AC bus 2 through the AC Essential bus. So there you go. And that's reversionary testing. Now we also had to test the APU to make sure the APU generator worked, and that bus tie worked as well. But I'm not going to simulate that now because we don't have the APU on. Let's make sure everything else is fine. We have a status message there. It should go away. All right, we're back to normal. Everything is looking good. 2,600 pounds per side, 360. We're still looking fine and dandy. Let's go back outside. Whoop. Wow. That's kind of a cool angle. Let's leave it at that. XP72! What is going on, man? Good to see you in the stream. I had a hell of a lot of fun watching you last night, man. He says, hello, Captain. Loving this new Airbus, not the Jurassic ones from the past. XP, good to see you on stream, man. Welcome aboard, dude. Welcome aboard. This one is definitely more user-friendly than those dinosaurs that we have. The A300, man. Definitely more user-friendly. But I gotta say, XP72, man, you did a hell of a job hand flying that A300 all the way around. Not a lot of people probably do that. I mean, you shut everything off and you hand flew all the way back around at night, nonetheless, on stream while drinking. So, good stuff, man. Welcome aboard. Does the RAM work in X-Plane? Are you talking about the RAM air turbine? I believe it does. I haven't actually tested it. I know it'll pop out. I've seen it pop out during my overhead videos, or overhead explanation videos. But I can only imagine that it would work. I don't know. We'll have to test it maybe on our back to work streams when we start doing failures. Is there no generator synchronization when connecting them, or is it just that fast? It's just that fast, Gaming Ninja Sheep. So yeah, not like the old school. I know the 727, you had the synchro phasers and everything on that flight engineer panel. You had to make sure everything was synchronized before connecting them. You don't have to do that on the Airbus. It auto does that, and you will get those hard power transfers. You'll see the cockpit lights flicker or flash, and you get that really loud click sound. But you don't have to do any synchronization. It will automatically pick it up. So it's pretty cool. And it is that fast because it's meant to pick up the load without disrupting anything. So, I mean, even if you're on an ILS or coming in and you have a generator failure, it's meant to pick up that load and provide power without disrupting you. That's severely anyway. How fast are they replacing the CEOs with the NEOs at your base? It just kind of depends. You know, honestly, I've been out of the game for 3 months, man. So I know everything's on hold right now here in the States, and for pretty much everybody. I don't know how the aviation industry is doing over there in Europe, but I can see, this is an interesting topic though. I can see this XLR coming out of this post-COVID era. I could see the XLR really doing some damage, as in a good thing, to the aviation market, because you've got a long-range capable airplane that's much more efficient now than, say, your 777s or 76s. Now, granted, it can't take that many people as a 777 or a wide body in general, but it's a very cost-efficient way to take people long range. And if less people are flying because you're rebuilding the aviation community as a whole in real life from COVID, having a narrow-body, long-range airplane really is in a good position to do some work in the market. Simon JC says, if you dispatch with one loop working, would you just need to shut down the engine if the second loop fails during flight? Simon JC, I'd have to look at my COM procedure, my actual emergency procedure. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. You know what? I think I have it open. Well, you know what? That would be under MEL. Let me look. So he's asking if you dispatch with one fire loop, because you can dispatch with one fire loop. If that loop fails, I believe it's a land as soon as practical. But this is something that, I mean, these are great questions, and would probably be on my check ride, but I gotta look it up here, man. Give me a second. So I'm gonna look at my emergency procedures, but I'm pretty sure this would be under APU fire. Okay, so APU, oh, that's APU fire. Look, that avionics smoke. Hold on, let me get to. Okay, so it would depend, Simon JC. If the second loop fails during flight, loss of fire detection loops, crew awareness. Fire detected or fire detected by one loop when there's faulty or breaking both loops. Okay, so you will get a fire ECAM when fire is detected by both fire loops, or fire is detected by one loop when the other loop is faulty or inoperative, or if both loops break within 5 seconds, you will trigger a fire warning. Now, no, it would be under my MELs, man, so I gotta, and I don't know the MEL number, but I'm pretty sure if you're dispatched with one fire loop and then it fails, that it is considered a land as soon as practical situation. Because you don't have any more fire protection or detection on that engine. I'm almost positive that's the answer. And it takes me a while to look this up, because if you get dispatched with that, with one loop, you'll have an MEL number, a minimum equipment list number. It's a pretty long number, and it will bring you exactly to that. And without having that number, it's hard for me to find it. But I think I'm gaining some ground here. Power plant. I mean, there's like 3,000 pages of different failures. Bleeds. Let me see if I can search it by fire loop. Fire protection. Nope. Nope. Okay. Engine fire loop detection system, loop B or loop A. You can, except for extended range operations beyond 120 minutes, so you cannot fly longer than 120 minutes, one fire loop may be inoperative provided on each engine associated loop B is operative and the engine fire test is performed before each departure. So yes, as I thought, if you are dispatching with one fire loop, if the other one fails, it would definitely be an engine. You would go through your engine fire or your engine fault protection. So if it actually said fire, then you would of course handle it as an in-flight emergency as fire. But if that loop B failed, like it just said, say you had loop A in op, loop B says fault, now it would become land as soon as practical. I mean, you don't have, and that would be a sticky situation. So. But there you go. Yeah, you would definitely be handled as an in-flight emergency. But good question, and that's awesome because you guys make me look this stuff up. That's what I'm here for, man. I'm trying to get back in the grind of things. Now we should be coming up on. We're 4 more likes from a 321. Appreciate that, guys. Here, maybe this flyby view will do it here. If you haven't liked the video already, go ahead and hit the like button for this flyby sound. That's pretty good, and I got the volume turned way down too. We're going for 321 likes. That's pretty darn good. I love this Orbex HD. Chief Sim Pilot, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. Got on a long tangent there about fire loops. Trying to do more studying. Let me see if I can find another question for you guys. Hydraulics is a great place to ask questions, and I get a lot of questions on hydraulics in check rides. So let's go ahead and get a hydraulics question here. Okay. What are some users or components of the yellow hydraulic systems or system? So what uses the yellow hydraulic system? It's a pretty important system, the yellow hydraulic. We have the yellow hydraulic electric pump. We also have the engine-driven pump from the yellow system. Give me one. Somebody give me an answer to the yellow system. Carter says, I got 321 just before the flyby. Awesome, man. Miss Jungle says, smashed it. Awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Simon says, exactly. Thanks for answering the question. My thought process is the engine is then unprotected, and it might be safer to shut it down even though land ASAP is in effect. Yeah, that is correct, Simon JC. So that would be, every situation is dynamic, right? So you would have to, it would be situation dependent. I mean, it's very possible that fire, there is a fire. I mean, if it fails, there's a reason for it. So it is a dynamic situation, but yeah, you would end up having to shut it down most likely because you have no protections. That's a great question. PTU from Dimitri. Parking brake, alternate brake, nose reel steering. Russ D. So there's rudder ailerons. Okay. Whoa, we just went to idle thrust there momentarily. And let's go ahead and make sure everything's okay. Just
Donation.
Just a speed change there. That's okay. Randcool68, thank you so much, man. Coming in with a $15 donation. He says, Jack Daniels fun. Randcool, I appreciate it, man. Christmas is on the horizon. Definitely going to need some Jack Daniels. I appreciate that very much, Rand. Thank you so much for your support on the channel, my friend. Awesome stuff. So there's a key user on the... oh, I thought that was... we're almost to the mountain where I want to look. We'll go back to our... we'll go back to this view here. So you guys are getting some good ones out there. Reverse engine 2, alternate braking, alternate park brake, flaps, those are correct. So alternate brakes is important, but the biggest one, and Russ D actually nailed it. he says nose wheel steering. So this gets back to that age-old question of why do you start engine 1 first, or why does this airline start engine 2 first, and blah, blah, blah. So normal nose wheel steering is handled by the yellow hydraulic system. So let's hop into the cockpit. Let's pull up our hydraulic page. Okay. I'll make it bigger for y'all. So, if the yellow hydraulic system provides nose wheel steering, I would say that it is important to have nose wheel steering or yellow hydraulic pressure on the ground. Is that correct? I believe that's correct. Now, why do we start engine 1 versus engine 2 or engine 2? Some airlines start engine 2 first. That would have to do with braking on the ground. So normal braking comes off of the green system. So I would say normal braking is also important to have on the ground. I believe that's a correct statement. So you want to have normal braking and you want to have nose wheel steering. So we need the green and the yellow hydraulic system to be pressurized during ground operations if we want to get anywhere safely, right? So one would think, okay, well, let's start engine 2 because you're going to get nose wheel steering. The PTU will then take pressure from the yellow system and pressurize the green system so we have brakes. So we could taxi with engine 2 started and engine 1 off, and the PTU transferring pressure from the yellow to the green system to provide normal braking. The only problem with that is that if you guys are familiar with the PTU sound, my beagles do it, and you guys hear it in the sound packs of vroom, vroom. As you're taxiing along the ground with engine 2 running and engine 1 off, that PTU sound is going to be running the entire taxi out because it has to keep the green system pressurized. What happens if the PTU fails and the green system depressurizes on the ground? We've just lost normal braking, right? Now, we have alternate brakes, so we're not totally SOL, but we've just lost normal braking, which is a pretty big deal. So, this depends on airlines, guys. But I'm telling you, I had the same Airbus guy in the jump seat that said, hey, if you take off with it in the green, it'll land in the green, man. You're good to go. He also said, starting engine 1 makes the most sense first, especially if you single engine taxi. So if I start engine 1 first, what happens now is that the green system is pressurized and I have main braking or normal braking on the green system. Perfect. Well, what about nose wheel steering, you say? Well, on the overhead, we've got our yellow electric pump. So on the ground with engine 1 started, engine 2 off, and the yellow electric pump running, I no longer need to run the PTU. So the cabin crew and the passengers no longer have to listen to the PTU running in the background when I single engine taxi because I have the yellow electric pump on. That is kind of one of the reasons why it is there, is so you can single engine taxi out on engine 1 and have the yellow electric pump on, and if the yellow electric pump fails, guess what happens? The PTU takes over. So I have two redundancies here for the yellow system. Whereas if I was just running on yellow, I'm relying on the PTU to get the green system pressurized. If the PTU fails, I'm automatically SOL and I go to alternate braking. There's no redundancy. If you single engine taxi on the left engine or engine 1, you have the yellow electric pump providing you nose wheel steering, and if that fails, you also have the PTU's capability to take green pressure and pressurize the yellow system and give you nose wheel steering. So that is the reason why, if you are going to single engine taxi, you should be starting engine number 1. Now, your company procedures are going to dictate what engine you start at any given time. It is our procedure that we always start engine 1 first. I know there are European airlines that start engine 2 first. And I believe I spoke to one of them. I don't know if it was Ed or somebody in the Discord. Let's say, yeah, we start engine 2 first always, unless we're planning on single engine taxiing, and then we start engine 1 first. That's totally fine. But then now you got to know if you're going to single engine taxi before you actually push back. So by starting engine 1 first, you eliminate that extra step, right? So you're always going to start engine 1 first. If you want a single engine taxi, you're good to go. Sometimes I've had that where I've taxied out, and I said, I don't think we'll fire up 2 as soon as we get around the corner here. but you turn the corner and there's 14, 15 planes in line for takeoff. Okay, well, we're going to stay on a single engine. Now, if you were planning to dual engine taxi and you start up engine 2 first, and then all of a sudden what happens if you push back, you start up engine 2, and then you get a delay from ground saying, hey, they've just got a ground stop for your destination. Now you're sitting there with engine 2 running and everybody listening to the PTU running in the cabin. So, now granted, you could start engine 1 and then shut down engine 2, whatever, but it just adds an extra step. So that is my explanation for why you start engine 1 first, why you should start engine 1 first. If you're going to start them both up, then it doesn't matter. I mean, the airplane can handle whatever engine you start first. It can handle single engine taxiing on either engine. But that is the logical and technical explanation of why I always start engine 1 first, and because it's in my company SOPs. Carter says 320 Sim Pilot talked about this mainly because most airports in Europe are smaller. They don't single engine taxi as much like in the US that have much bigger airports. And there you go. That's a very very relevant scenario. Then you got smaller airports there. I know I would say probably 65-70% of my taxi outs in real life are single engine. So very, very common to be single engine taxi. Felipe says the 2 carriers that fly 320 in Brazil start 2 first, but single engine taxi is not common here. So there you go. So if it's not common and you're going to start them both up, then it really doesn't matter. If you're going to start both engines, it doesn't matter. And honestly, if you're even here in the US, even at my airline where we're supposed to start 1 first, if we have to do a ground start, a lot of times you're going to end up starting 2 first because they run that ground air cart or that ground air hoses in front of the number 1 engine. So you got to start 2 first. So it's not wrong or incorrect. It's just what your company wants you to do. So Javez says, I've heard single engine taxiing is less common in Europe. That's very interesting to me because Europe is very progressive in its noise and its efficiency, and I find it interesting that not a lot of them, it's not common. I mean, it's very common here in the US to single engine taxi. So I mean, shoot, you got to put those special clips underneath the fuel outflows underneath the wing to reduce noise, and that came from Europe. So that is so surprising to me that it's not a common thing. I would think that they would demand everybody to single engine taxi out there. Anthony says, I got to go for school. Great stream. See everyone next time. Anthony, thanks for stopping by, man. Have a good one. Christian says, when I took off one time, I started hearing the PTU just after rotation. Why would that happen? Just because you probably had a loss of pressure, or you're just when you're bringing up the gear, it's pressurizing one of the systems that might have dropped just a little bit below. Sometimes you'll go gear up and beep, 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 or ring, 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 ring. That's common. Yeah, no need to spam. You got other channels that you can go act like children at. But no spamming necessary here at this one, man. We'll try to keep it professional here. Appreciate you. So many intricate details. Camp 321, that's what's exactly, man. There's a lot of little intricacies that goes unnoticed sometimes. And that's what I'm here for, man. That's what I'm here to explain to you guys. Makes the Seneca I used to fly seem like a toy. There's definitely a lot more going on behind the scenes in an Airbus than a Seneca. But hey, man, you push the stick forward, the houses get bigger. You pull the stick back, the houses get smaller. Same thing as the Seneca. So you got to have those fundamentals of flight. Trim the explanation from the stream and upload it as a separate video. I might do it, man. Starting number 2 first is probably a leftover thing from the times before Airbus. Boeing's always start 2 from high number to low number. Yeah, I know it's definitely a Boeing thing. I don't know. I'm not typed on the Boeing. I don't know if there's any technical reason behind it, like there is on the Airbus. But it could definitely well be a leftover thing. I mean, in the Beech 99, I would start 2 first. Something to do with for evacuation purposes. Let's see, in the Citation, you would start 2 first because if you're using ground power, that ground power is connected right on the left side of the on the number 1 engine, and if you like your ground crew, you don't want them to go under that engine when it's running because it's extremely loud. Love all your engine sound reenactments. Appreciate it, man. All right. So speaking of the PTU, and you were talking about that, you know, if it drops in quantity right when you suck the gear up, what triggers the PTU? So my question is, what is the differential pressure requirement for the PTU to activate in auto mode? If the PTU is in auto mode, what pressure differential will trigger it to activate? I'm looking for a specific PSI. Simon JC says the blue and yellow system have an electric pump. Why not the green? Partly due to the PTU being installed. If that's the case, why not remove the PTU? Because the PTU is used for more than just one system, and it's all about having redundancy, right? So you have two electrics and a PTU. You've got plenty of redundancy for the green system. But as far as why they don't put an additional electric pump on there, I don't know why it's not additional electric on the green. Because what if maybe it's something more to fail? I don't know. 300. Nope. What's up, Sergio? It's good to see you, man. Yep. When one system is powered, and difference between two systems is 500 psi. So you get that drop, 500 psi or greater, that PTU is going to kick on. Sergio, welcome, man. Yes, this is the new Toliss 321 NEO, man. This is the new 321 NEO. We are actually just getting ready to start prepping for our descent. How far are we out here? A couple of different wind changes for sure. The wind has definitely picked up. We're 295, so we're getting ready to start our descent prep. Go ahead and get rid of that hydraulics there.
Donation.
All right. Toliss has donated. Thank you, Toliss. Appreciate the donation. Says, here's $1. Please do your best noise impression of landing in an A321 from 500 feet down to vacate. Are you talking about like to vacating the runway? You're talking about the call outs? Do your best noise impression of landing at 3. Oh. Are you talking about when the engine goes to idle? I appreciate that support. What noise impression of landing at 321 from 500 feet down to vacate? I don't know which sound are you talking? Like from like the when it goes to idle? Well, now you're putting me on the spot, man. Now I'm getting nervous. It's like the that sound? Is that sound you're talking about? Like when the thrust comes to idle? When doing a single engine taxi on the NEO, do you leave the crossbleed to auto or open? You leave it in auto. Saw a document explaining that the NEO inhibit 2-pack operation on one engine running. I believe that actually dependent upon which NEO variant you're running and which engine you're running. There is an inhibit function on 2-pack operation, but it also has to do with what's the switch? Econ flow. So yeah, it's a little bit more complex than that. I believe that has to do with the engine variation too. Thank you for the subscribe there, HateTub99. The entire thing, we're talking callouts and reverse thrust, the lever clicks. Oh man, I don't think I could do that, man. I mean, also the callouts will be dependent on your airline too. Some airlines have more callouts than others as far as the rad outs goes. I will try to do some callouts for you on the way down. Please make a vocal sound pack for this. So funny thing is, I just did a sound pack for the A321X mod for FS 2020. I did the recordings for passenger announcements and the V1 and rotate and all that stuff. So hopefully that'll be coming around sooner than later. The game of how much to spend to make him sell his soul has started. Cobalt Skies, it's funny, man. Zero SPO violation. Oh, oh man, these names are great. 0 SOP violations. That's the way you want to fly, man. 0 SOP violations. He says, hi, Captain. Wish all a pleasant flight. I have a question about the man thrust. When is it in man mode? You go to full control over thrust or selected speed is somehow still in game. Does system reduce thrust of speed less than actual speed? When is it in man mode? You go full control over thrust or selected speed. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this here. You're talking about manual thrust. And to understand manual thrust, we must first understand the auto thrust range. So the auto thrust range for the Airbus is from just above 0 to the flex MCT detent. So this solid line indicated here on your thrust quadrant is auto thrust range. So if the auto thrust is on, or active I should say, and you have the thrust levers anywhere in here, you are in the auto thrust range. Now, if you go to selected speed mode, like if you pull this knob out and want to change your speed, say I'm now on selected speed, I want to go back to 7.7 Mach, the auto thrust is still active, but I'm now controlling the speed via the FCU up here and the selected speed knob. If I manage it, it's going to run whatever speed is programmed in the box. Now, manual thrust, if you were to disengage the auto thrust by pressing the instinctive disconnect push buttons here, this little red button on the thrust quadrant, you now have full control of manual thrust from obviously 0 to climb. Between climb and flex MCT, this is actually a thrust range here, as indicated by the line connecting them too. This is a thrust range. It's not just detent to detent. You can actually use thrust. There's usable thrust between these two detents. Now, from flex MCT to Toga, that is a detent. That is, you're going from max continuous thrust to maximum available thrust for the current ambient temperatures of the airplane and the engine that you're operating on. So Toga will always give you maximum power at that specific day where you have, different outside air temperatures and pressure altitudes and all that. Now, there's a really cool shot of the mountains here, but I think the clouds are in the way, which is extremely disappointing. I don't know if you guys saw the thumbnail when we started the stream, but I actually took that screenshot on this route. I don't know, we'll see if it comes into range here in a little bit. But I need some water, man. I'm talking a lot. Alright, can you explain switching the transponder from neutral to above mode for takeoff and below mode for descent? So it's just you're talking about this panel right here. So let me preface this explanation by saying that no matter which mode that you're actively displaying, above, neutral, or below, if you have a TCAS conflict arising, it's going to alert you on your PFD no matter what. So even if you have this in above mode and somebody's approaching you from below, and you get an alert, it's gonna populate on your PFD, and you're gonna get that TCAS alert, no matter what section you have. Now, all this switch does is basically reduce clutter. So it's not by any means limiting where the TCAS is going to give you an RA or an alert. It's basically showing what clutter you want on your PFD. So, and this is an interesting topic because I actually got into this on a check ride one time. So in our book, we're technically supposed to put the TCAS selector in neutral at cruise altitude. Now I was arguing, which you should never argue with an examiner, but I was arguing that you actually receive more information if you leave it in below mode than you do at neutral. Now, the reason for below mode, and I'd have to look up the actual angles. Maybe Cobalt Skies has them handy. He can actually tell you. The actual limits of what is being displayed on your PFD. But in below mode, you not only get traffic that is at a neutral horizon and slightly above and slightly below, you get slightly above and you get way below with the TCAS mode selector in below mode. So I was saying, why put it in neutral and limit myself to looking at the smallest section possible with slightly above and slightly below? Then if I were to go to below mode, I have slightly above and a lot below. Now, the same could be said about above mode. You could be, in above mode, you're seeing neutral and above you. So it's really, it would be what your company says, but ideally, you're going to see more traffic earlier if you're climbing in above mode, because you want to be looking above, right? Because the airplane is climbing up, so you want to see people above you. And in descent mode, you want to see people below you because you're descending down to through their altitudes, perhaps. So you want to see below you. Now in cruise, well, really, you're not moving the airplane anywhere, so you can reduce your clutter by just looking at neutral mode and seeing who's at your current altitude or who's slightly above and who's slightly below. But like I said, it's literally just a depiction on your PFD. The TCAS system will give you an RA, and it will give you an alert, no matter where that selector is, according to its pre-programmed parameters. So I hope that answers that question for you. And I don't know the actual angles. I'd have to look it up, man. Why did the NEO sound like whales when taxiing or on startup? So I believe that actually comes from the fan drive gear system. That's when we talked about the fan reduction speed, that 3-to-1. So you have a much slower rotating fan and a higher compression section, and it's got to be something to do with the harmonics. Now, the fuel flow, I've also heard that, where you can have the fuel flow into the engine also creates that sound. To be 100% honest with you, I don't know exactly what makes that noise. That would be something for an engineer, Pratt & Whitney engineer, to tell you why. I've heard several different methods, whether it's the fuel injection, the fan speed, and that FDGS, that gear system. But I will tell you, it is very pronounced. I've been walking around on the ramp, and I've literally spun my head around like, what is that? And it's just a NEO spooling up to taxi out. And even more particularly, the 220s, those 220s, man, they're small. I got a hair in my mouth. Well, that's pretty disgusting. The 220s are small, but those engines sure make a noise. So, there we go, I got it. Little dog fur. And right on cue, he starts barking. So maybe Cobalt Skies has an answer to that, what actually makes it, but I'm pretty sure, my assumption it has to do with that geared section, that FDGS, that really makes it pop. I can't wait to fly in a 220 whale. Yeah, man, for sure. All right, well, let's take a break from that. Let's start prepping for Portland here as we get a little bit closer. Man, and here's one thing I noticed too, is the terrain mode, I can actually pop this out to 320 miles, and I don't get that magenta box anymore. So whatever Toliss did, so I get terrain out to 320 miles, it's pretty sweet. I like that. We'll zoom into 180 here. Man, I thought for sure, I guess it's covered up by the clouds. It's so disappointing. Man, some good views there. All right, but let's start prepping for Portland. Preliminary preparations here. KPDX. Well, what do we got? 290 at 3. Perfect. We're going to land on 10 left. Prog page KPDX 10 left. Again, love those McDo sounds. Perf, everything looking good. 7.8 descent. We're going to change this. We're going to do a 7.6 at 320 descent. And what do we have down there? 3008. Temperature of 4 degrees. Ooh, chilly morning in Portland. Magnetic wind, 290 at 3. All right, now let's look at our charts. Arrival, Timbers 2. And then we also need to pull up airport 10-9. And then we also need to pull up the approach for ILS 10 left. Okay, 293, I believe. Yep, ILS DA is 293. We're going to put that in the MDA slot, 293 here. Config full. Transition altitude is 18,146 on the VAP. That looks good. We're going to be looking for IVDG 111.3. So we'll get our LS push buttons on. Oh, check that out. It's already showing up as it should. 208 miles, perfect. So at 250 miles, you get this information here, and your barrel pops up. Why that's important, why that 250 mile marker, it's kind of, it'll again depend on your airline, but for us, when you hit that 250 and you see this barrel pop up, that's a trigger for the flight crew. Hey, let's start preparation for our initial descent. So that's kind of just a little trigger that we use. But we got our barrel on the screen. We'll go a little bit further before we start down. We don't have any ATC today, so we don't have to be super worried about this arrival, but essentially we got to add our aboves there. We've got a speed restrictions, and it's going to bottom out at 5,000 a micro, 210 knots. Speed restriction, turbojet aircraft, descending via the Mach number, maintain 280 knots until slowed by the star. So we can do it, not a problem. Oh man, that's a cool shot down there. I'm trying to get to that lake, but we're directly below it. Anyway. Man, what a shame I can't see a mountain. Was St. Helens? I should know that mountain. Dougal knows it. Or, Dimitri knows it. This is his neck of the woods. Or, Portland Aviation, if he's in the chat. I saw him earlier. The howl sound is of animals being forced into vat injectors to ruin the environment. The Pratt & Whitney GTFs run best on, like, in heat wheels. Oh my gosh. Official. Oh man, cold one. That's good. Whale oil. So question about Microsoft Flight Sim. When I'm cruising at 30,000 feet, my aircraft struggles to even hold 260 to 30 knots. Any recommendations? What is your payload? And what is your Mach number? So once you get up to that 30,000 feet, depending on the day, your transition altitude is going to be anywhere from 24 to 28,000 feet typically. So when you transition to Mach, that's what you're worried about up at altitude, not necessarily indicated speed. Do you have to do a tactical approach into Portland? I don't believe we've got to do a tactical approach. I think we're going to be good. Golden State says, V1, maybe visit Sacramento someday. I got family there, man. Not too exciting, but I love that little airport. I'm definitely going to have to do it. We'll have to go into Sacramento. Is there a scenery for Sacramento? I feel like there is. Or I feel like Phantom 320 was working on a Sacramento or something. E-Man Hoover says, hello, V1. I love your stream. I will always learn something when I watch a stream. Is the rudder trim used as strong crosswind? Not in crosswind, man. You don't want to use rudder trim. You'll use actual rudder input. You don't want to be trimming the rudder, and the only time you touch that rudder trim is if the airplane's bent, of course, and you're hand flying and you want to get the rudder trim over, or if you have an engine failure. Abinhab says, I really appreciate the knowledge you share on your streams. There's always something to take away from these videos. Thank you for making such great content. Abinhab, I appreciate that, man. That's what I do it for. I love teaching. I love talking Airbus. I love talking systems, and having you guys along for the ride just makes it that much more enjoyable. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Crater Lake, Paul says. There you go. Might be Crater Lake. Rygorian says, V1, your favorite aspect of flying the A322X series? Let me answer that in a second. Brian Harris coming in with a $10 donation. Dude, thank you so much for your donation, Brian. I appreciate it. He says, loving the buses. Unopened honeycomb box is growing cobwebs. Oh, now I can't believe that, Brian Harris. Come on, man. You got the 300 that needs that honeycomb yoke. But awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much for your support. I tell you what, man, when you love, I think we're all impartial to our own airplanes. I mean, you look at Flight Deck to Sim, he loves his Boeing because he flies the Boeing. I'm sure everybody who flies their airplane loves their airplane, right? So I'm no different. I love my Airbus. But there's other aspects that I love about it too. Is, I love teaching. I love the systems in the Airbus. I think it's very unique how Airbus has kind of gone on and done its engineering. There's some things that are not great, and there's some things that are pretty darn cool. So, I'm just glad you guys enjoy the sentiments and enjoy hanging out with me here on stream and talking about all things aviation. But back to your question, my favorite aspect of flying the Airbus series, okay, from a pilot's perspective, dude, it's the cockpit, because that's where I spend all my time, right? And I have yet to sit in a cockpit that's as comfortable as an Airbus cockpit. Not bashing anybody, Boeing, but not having a yoke, having a tray table, the extra width in the cabin, the width is greater on a narrow-body Airbus as it is on a 7.3. The extra height on wheels, it sits higher than a 7.3 on the ground. Now, these are just things that, as a pilot, I think are really good, because if you're sitting higher on the ground, it makes taxiing a lot easier, especially at night, low visibility. When you're on those international airports that have really big taxiways, you can feel pretty small. So sitting just a little higher up makes a big difference. But that cockpit, man, it's so comfortable. Why wouldn't you want to be in a comfortable cockpit when that's where you spend 99% of your time when you're on the airplane? So the cockpit, man, is pretty hard to beat. We probably might have to start down soon. Let's go ahead and check. I was really hoping we would see that mountain there off the left, but I think the clouds were blocking it. So I'm going to go ahead and dial in 5,000 feet here. And what's our progress say, or perf, sorry, 10 miles. So at 5 miles, we'll start down. I guess I'll go ahead and start getting the sounds back up to juicy levels here. Let's bring up our engine volume a tad here. So again, bringing it up to that, enhanced level. In real life, it's pretty darn quiet up here. And on descent, you don't hear anything when you're at idle thrust in a NEO. I mean, you hear nothing. It is literally wind noise. That's it. There's about 5 miles. We'll go ahead and nose her on over, mock descent. And just like we were talking about earlier, we'll throw our TCAS into below mode there, squawking 2,000. Engine's coming back. And down we go, right out of the cons. Captain Geo says shots fired. Hey, man, I'm just speaking from the heart, man, I'm not trying to start a fight. But tray table to kick up your feet, There's a lot of things that tray table is good for. I don't know if I should get into it on stream right now, though. 7.4 has floor heaters. Kartik, so that's pretty fantastic. I don't know, are they standard equipment? Because the Airbus has floor heaters as well, and foot warmers. But it depends on the airline. It's an option. It's an option to have foot warmers. I tell you what, my feet get freaking cold in the Airbus. When you do a long flight, especially at Transcon in the wintertime, or just really on any time, even in the middle of summer, because up at altitude, it's cold. But your feet can become cold soaked, and they're impossible to warm up. So I know why Airbus has that option for foot warmers, but you just got to work for an airline that actually pays for them. I mean, I don't think there's very many that, I think in Europe it's probably more common because they tend to spend more money for flight crew comfort than here in the U.S. It's more about bottom dollar here in the U.S., man. Back in the old days, I could see it happening, but nowadays it's all about that bottom dollar. Bent airplane rudder trim, please elaborate. So when the autopilot's on, if you trim the rudder, it actually doesn't do anything. So I can press that rudder trim with the autopilot on, and it's not doing anything. Now, if the autopilot off, if the airplane is bent, and that may come as a shock, but not every airplane is perfectly straight. So you'll get in airplanes, they just fly crooked, man. So you can trim it out. Now, what you will notice sometimes, if you're in that crooked airplane and you have the autopilot on, you'll see that rudder trim run over. You'll see it run over to like +5 or +7, whatever it is, to fly straight. So, but you manually doing it doesn't do anything. But the airplane will auto trim it for coordinated flight. So when you disconnect the autopilot, it should already be semi-trimmed out for you. More juice than an apple. My ideal cockpit with a 7.4 with the Airbus side stick. Kartik, I think you're speaking of like 350. Well, 350 probably not as big. 380 probably is a pretty big cockpit. But I think my ideal cockpit would be, although the 7.4, I'm with you. The 7.4 cockpit does look pretty sweet, man. I think the 350 cockpit is where it's at, man. If I could be in one cockpit for the rest of my career, put me in a 350 cockpit with the amount of fuel as just a typical CEO Airbus, so I don't have to sit up there for 8-10 hours at a time, and I'm good to go, man. What are the bad things about the Airbus? Let's say bad, but there's little things that, you know, I wish were changed. First thing that comes to mind is the thrust levers. Much like how Boeing has their it's auto throttle, even though it's really thrust. So there's another one. Terminology. Come on, Boeing. This is, you know, you're flying a jet now. Those are thrust levers, not throttles. But they call them auto throttles. I like how they move. I think that's important. I think it's good to see the auto throttle moving, because if you need to override it, like on an approach, say you feel, because you can feel the airplane coming out the backside of a updraft or something, and you can feel that you're going to be slow, so you can preemptively add thrust, where in the Airbus you can't do that. In the Embraers you could do that. You can go into thrust override and just hold the throttle levers in the position. So that's one thing I wish Airbus, you know, I wish you had movable thrust levers. Another thing is the side stick. I wish both side sticks moved simultaneously. I don't know how that would be possible because they're independent of each other, but you know, there's debate saying that, well, if both side sticks moved, then Air France 447 never would have happened. So, I mean, there's that, but there's also other protections in place that you should know when the side stick is moving. So, but those are just a couple things off the top of my head that, in a perfect world, you know, you'd have movable side sticks when the other guy's moving it, and you'd also have movable thrust levers. Kartik says agreed V1 on the 350, but love the 4 pots. Unfortunately, they're going away. I hear you, man. That 4 engine is it's definitely a beast, man. 350 with 4 engines. How's that? We'll make our own airplane. A 350 with 4 engines. Put the Boeing colors in there, like that green and that the lamb skin, because I think that's really really comfortable to sit on. And then you got an optimum cockpit. Dimitri coming in with a $20 donation, dude. Thank you so much. He says, time to open an X-Enviro Ultra Weather XP fund. Oh, man, Dimitri's getting salty at my default weather here. Or alt constraint star there. Okay, so that's normal. Dimitri, appreciate the support, man. I'll have to start a fund. I'm going to put that into the Ultra Weather X-Enviro. I believe that's what XP72 was running, right, Dimitri? He's running X-Enviro now. I've really been looking at it. I like the fact that they can, that you can change it on the fly and see the changes in the simulator now. I really like that. I'm looking at it hard, Dimitri. I'm looking at it hard, man. I'll start the X-Enviro fund just for you, my friend. What did I see? Someone had a good point. Jeremy, he says, what if you had a heated side stick? Ooh, you know, I've talked about that side stick being cold, you know, when you've been flying in auto mode or an autopilot the whole time, and then you go to disconnect it and you touch the stick. I don't know how I'd feel about that, man. That's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like sitting on a warm toilet seat, right? You go into a public restroom, like, oh, this seat's nice and warm, and then you realize why it's so warm. I don't know, man. I don't know if I want a heated side stick. That cold, it kind of brings you into reality, you know. It kind of gives you that, at least me anyway. Maybe I'm just weird like that, but you get that. Okay, I'm touching the here it is. It's a mental trigger, and there's a lot of triggers in airline flying or just in flying in general that you will develop as a pilot over time. And that's just one of those triggers for me. I put my hand on the stick. It's cold. It's like, boom, okay, here we go time, man. You're getting paid to put this airplane on the ground safely, so let's get it done. That's kind of what kind of goes through my mind. So I don't know if I'd change that. Carter says, yep, X-Enviro, it's good now in OpenGL, but 1.15 will be Vulkan. Okay, so I can run it at OpenGL? Is that what you're saying, Carter? So I thought it was opposite. I thought it was working in Vulkan and not OpenGL. So hey, I'm running OpenGL, so if it's working for that, then I might jump on that, man. thinking of the coupled side stick Air France 447 says Niels. Yeah, man, it was the thing is with that whole incident. It's sad. It really could have been avoided. And you can talk about it, you can blame Airbus, you cannot blame, you can blame the crew, but the reality is if both side sticks were moving, probably wouldn't have happened. Probably wouldn't have happened. But there were 3 other systems going off, alerting the crew that their both side sticks were conflicting, and so then it goes to training, right? Then it goes to training. Then you got to look at the crew, be like, okay, well, you're trained, you're obviously typed on the airplane, you should know this, right? But you get thrown into a situation, you got human factor element. It's just what it is, man. It's a sad sight. XP says warm toilet seat. Oh, Java says it's only OpenGL right now. Well, there you go. So maybe I should jump on it. Warm toilet seats. Yeah, I mean, you guys know the feeling. I mean, you can't tell me no one's ever sat on. I mean, you go and you just have one of those days where you got to go and you sit down like, oh, it's nice and warm. Oh, mm-hmm. Anyway, Demetrius says, let's see if we can get the likes over 400. Oh, let's see where we're at. Maybe we can. We were going for 321. Looks like we beat 321. That's good. If you haven't already, guys, hit the like button for this stream, man. This has been a good stream. I'm super excited for you guys to get your hand on the Neo. Okay, one thing I want to ask you guys in chat, and I'll see what your answers are. So my internet, you guys know my internet situation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Today, it has been absolutely perfect. We have not dropped a single frame. Now, I don't know if over time, if that would affect anything, like if we had a super long stream. But here's the thing. On Friday, I kind of have the itch to do an A321 NEO long haul in Hawaiian from Honolulu to Los Angeles. I cannot guarantee that it will work the whole way through because I don't know if the stream will work all the way that long. But I almost think it's worth a shot. I don't know what time it would be yet. I'm thinking maybe super early morning, take off from Honolulu and then land in LA, or land in, I don't know. I'm undecided on the time, but is that something you guys would even care about? Now, I'd obviously have to take breaks throughout the stream there. I might leave for a little bit and cruise and whatnot, but it might be fun to do a full-blown, put this airplane on a real route with a real airline, long haul, Honolulu to LAX in a 321. And we can talk about ETOPS, we can talk about extended overwater operations. But I have to forewarn you guys that, you know my internet situation, so who knows there's a possibility midstream something could happen and it all falls out, but I think it could be fun to try. Dream list, the small insides. Oh, I can't even. I'm not even going to read the rest of your comment, man. I'll probably alert you beforehand. Yeah, awesome. Team Vodka says, let's do it in 4K. I don't know if we could do it in 4K, man. I tell you what, that last stream when I tried to go off in 1080p, I watched it back. Everything was fine on the stream side. It was just YouTube saying that my quality wasn't good. I might do a test stream with members only with no alert, so if you see it pop up tomorrow, maybe even tonight, I might do a 1080p test stream, and I'm just going to let YouTube yell at me, and I want to see what happens on the stream side, because my OBS, I have a thing that shows me my frame drops, my internet connectivity. That was fine when we were going 1080p. It was just YouTube complaining, saying that I needed more bit rate, but everything was going smooth. I don't know if that's something over time that would diminish, but who knows. Everyone says yes. Everyone says let's do it. All right, man. Hey, I think we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna do a long haul. V1 and long haul. Yeah, I'm not a huge long haul fan, but I've gotten the itch, man, that we've got this NEO now. I think we need to really put it to the test. But let's go ahead and let's pay more attention here. We're on the descent. I really got to pee. I hope I can make it here. What was our 330 something, right? 3008 on the altimeter. 3008 is set. We're through 18,000. Seatbelt sign is on. Flight attendants, please prepare cab for arrival. We're 12-2, descending 1000. We're going to straighten this up just because I got to pee here. We're going to go direct to... Let's go direct to sail. Direct to sail, 8000. I'm going to manually select 280 for now. Let's work it back to 250. Fuel below 3 tons. Cool. We'll get a little speed brake action here going on there. Where's let's go to a wing view. Let's go to the sunny side. Meow. Long haul till she's out of gas, Terry. Oh, jeez. Wow, look at that little wing flex action there. I don't know if they've tweaked their wing flex, but I'm liking it. Yeah, please refrain from using caps. Jeremy says, I tried to do my first stream and I'm brand new to streaming, so I hit stream in OBS and didn't realize you had to hit go live in YouTube also. Yep. Yeah, you got to go live in both. All right, we're 10-9, 250 knots. We're descending down to 8,000. Everything else looks good there sound-wise. I'm going to turn this sound up for approach, and we'll turn our engine volume up a little bit. We'll turn up environmentals. System volume, we'll turn you down a little bit just because I can hear that wind in the background. We want a little more enhancement on the engines for cinematic purposes. Here's 10.5. Let's go ahead and pop our lights out. We're going to turn them all on since we have no ATC today. Here they come. Nicholas, he says something you want. I just got off the bus, so glad I could make it for landing. Nicholas, awesome, dude. Welcome aboard, dude. You are ready to go to land, man. And I really, really got to pee. What was that clicking noise? That was me scrolling the altimeter setting. So, whoa. There's 10,000 feet. We're through 10. Ding. Cobalt Skies, if you're still in chat, man, I've mentioned this before. How hard would it be to make this mechanic push button pop up the ISCS, like auto bound? Is there a way to bind this mechanic push button to pop up the ISCS? I only bring that up because in real life, on the ground, I mash the hell out of this button. Like if I need to talk to ground crew or something, and I think it would be kind of cool for a version for, ground services and stuff like that. I don't know how hard it would be to implement. I don't know if it's implementable now. I don't know if this is even a bindable button. Then I could just bind it to the ISCS because I have the ISCS bound to my Warthog. But I think it would be kind of cool to be able to come up here and press that mechanic button and pop up the that ISCS. I don't know how hard it would be to get that implemented though. Man, I don't know if I'm gonna make this landing. All right, I'm gonna go use the lab here real quick, guys. Hopefully we don't crash. Be right back. All right, man. Let's see where we are here. I just had to, oh, check this shot out here. I'm going to steal one from XP's book. We're going GoPro view. Look at Portland down there, man. awesome. XP72 refers to this as the GoPro view. Awesome idea. It really is a GoPro view. Ooh, let's see. Matt Haynes says you can bind a key for ISCS. I use control. Yeah, Matt, I have it bound, so I can just access it really quickly here with my my binding. I just thought it would be kind of interesting to have it bound to that mechanic push button because, as a captain, you do mash that button on the ground quite a bit. We are your trustworthy co-pilots. We've made it. Golden State says smash the like button like V1 smashes the mechanical push button. There you go, guys. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash the like button for the mechanical push button smash. All right, here we go. Let's zoom everything in here. I kind of want to pay attention now. We're at a 7,000 feet. There's sail at or below 8. We're definitely below that. Things are looking good. Let me get my screens ready for landing. I like to pop these out so you guys can see them. And I'll put it right there so I can still have my center line reference. 6.7 descending 6,000. Lights are on. Everything is looking good. We'll do auto brakes. We'll do manual braking because I want to do maximum reverse thrust so we can hear maximum NEO sounds. So we're going to do manual braking. We got a speed limit here at micro 210 knots, so let's dial it on back to 210. Since we are in selected speed, if we haven't already, I'll go ahead and activate and confirm the approach phase. That is done. And we're at a 6 descending 5,000 to sail. Man, it's hazy. I was really hoping that we'd have a nice clear morning here, but I guess that's not typical early morning here on the Pacific Northwest. Curtis says, don't worry, I sneezed in the hanky and wiped the face first before cleaning the like button. Oh my gosh, man. So, there we go, clear skies now. Thank you, default weather. So it's pretty funny that right before, when this COVID thing was happening, I don't think the Airbus cockpit has ever been so clean. I mean, people were literally trading and bartering for sandy wipes, which are little flight deck wipes. They're like, hey man, I'll trade you my snack pack for your sandy wipes, or I'll trade you, I got some Snickers, I'll trade you Snickers for sandy wipes if you didn't have any. I got to the point where I literally just bought a big old can of those Lysol wipes and took that sucker with me everywhere I went. I was just like, hey, we're wiping this whole cockpit down because I don't want to get that COVID, you know what I'm saying? So it was pretty funny though, man. People were making jokes about it all the time, and I kid you not, I had one guy, he's like, hey man, I don't have any flight deck wipes, and I only had, I think, 2 left, and I was gonna use them all because I used one for pretty much everything initially, and then I do it a second time, and he didn't have any, and he's like, hey man, I'll give you my Reese's cups for one of your sandy wipes, and because you guys know I love Reese's cups, so I said, all right man. I mean, I probably would have given it to him anyways, but I just thought it was funny that it was a legitimate barter transaction in the cockpit of a multi-million-dollar jet for Reese's cups and sandy wipes. But, oh boy, we should probably get those flaps out. What happened there? And we were right at S speed. Flaps 1. Thank you for the subscribe there, Bob. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. I think 2020 has been one of those crazy years, man. So 2021, I want to enter in with 17K subs. I think it'd be fun. I think we can do it. We got a couple weeks left. It might be a steep ask, but I think it'd be fun to enter 2021 without any leftover 2020, right? We hit 16K, which is a nice milestone here in 2020. I'd like to go into 2021 with 17K. I think that'd be good. So if you like this content, please subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate it. And in the words of 10 1-minute DCS, if you don't like this content, don't forget to tell me to go F myself below. Jeremy says you should do a stream where you replicate United 232 and fly with differential thrust. You'd have to deal with oscillations of pitch axis. Definitely would be a good thing to do, man. Might have to do that, Jeremy. Thanks for the suggestion, man. That was one hell of a accomplishment, those guys on 232. Snack pack. Rusty says snack pack. Yep. V1 1 like equals 1 save for the smash button. There you go, man. Gaming Ninja says I brought a bag full of hand sanitizer purely to trade for snacks. Oh, that's funny. That's funny, man. Need to plan the next tour, Team Vodka. I've got the next tour out on plan, but that's gonna. I think that'll happen at 20K. You know, I think every 10K we got to do a big tour. Wow, I need to pay attention here. We're well off here. 320. Dial it back to 180. I got too busy talking. Bring that speed back to 180. Descend and maintain 3,000. We're gonna ask a lot from the airplane. Speed brakes out. Flaps 1. I got totally sidetracked there with talking to you guys. Let's see if we can get her down. Continue that right turn, heading 360. Whoa, with the speed. I think we'll be all right. Instead of shooting the line, I'm just gonna go direct to trailer. Yeah, I think that'll work. Direct trailer. And we'll go approach mode, AP2. We got glide slope blue, low blue nav, because we're nav into trailer, down to 3,000. Cat 3 dual autopilot 1+2. Speed brakes are out. Coming back to 180. We're looking good. We're looking good. We'll be able to see those single slotted flaps again there on the trailing edge. You can see them now. Still got the speed brakes out as we're coming. That's a cool shot with the sun reflecting off there. This is a new flap design here, and they got that modeled properly. So again, this is more, again guys, more than an engine change that you're paying for here. There's a lot of subsystems that go into this. All right, there we go. Looking good, looking good. Jeremy says, I heard that peanut M&Ms are popular among pilots. Oh yeah, we call those pilot fat pills, man. I can't eat those anymore, dude.
2,500.
They are addicting, and the problem is with the peanut M&Ms, they're a sharing size. The bag is the sharing size bag, but I end up eating the whole bag, so I'm like, jeez. And then you feel really bad about yourself. So definitely, I gotta stay away from those pilot M&Ms, or those peanut M&Ms. They're so good, dude. I love them. All right, we're 180 now. Everything's looking good. Approach mode is activated. Here's 3,000. We are looking good. Terry says, butter it. We're going to try. Whoa, we got a little bit of wind there. Speed out star. Level 3,000. Oh, I heard a whale. Let's do a flyby. Shout out TSS for those flyby sounds, man. They are pretty darn good. I'll give credit where credit is due. Those sounds on that flyby are up there. What's your favorite snack while flying? Like healthy snack or candy? I mean, I love Reese's Cups. I love peanut M&Ms. Honestly, I like to eat stuff that I don't have to touch with my hands, though, if I can help it. Like if I'm eating like actual snack food, I try not to. Like, I don't want to do chips, or you really don't want to eat anything that you have to touch with your hands. Wow, look at this. We actually have to shoot this ILS for real. I hope we set up everything properly. So there's glide slope star. We're flaps 280 knots. We're looking good. Lights are on. Airbus 1000, 26, or 10 left. You're clear to land. Curtis says, I'd do the same thing. The M&M bag would be gone. I know, that's the thing. They give you, and you don't even realize they put like, oh, family size or sharing size in really small letters, and you eat the whole thing, and you look at the back, and you're like, oh, that was like 4 servings. Oops.
2,500.
All right, so we actually got to shoot this approach for real. I was not anticipating that. Something healthy is not a snack food bar. All right, here comes 2,000 feet. We're going to go ahead and manage speed. Gear down. Spoilers armed. VFE next -10. For cinematic purposes, we'll do it out here. Flaps 3. Look at that. Look at that flap. Awesome. VFE next -10, flaps full. That's pretty darn cool, man. Alright, maybe I should pay attention up front here. Wow, this is definitely hazy. Alright, cabin check. Done. Landing checklist, cabin crew advised, auto thrust, speed, ECAM memo, landing, all green. Auto brakes are off, landing checklist is complete, we're clear to land, 10 left. Here we go. How are default sounds on the 321? Is the BSS sound... honestly, Yoris, I don't think it is necessary, man. With these sound, especially on the NEO side. Runway in sight, landing. I barely see it there. Alright, I'm going to have to break away from the chat. And get my side stick set up right. There we go. I'm going to let the auto thrust do its thing. I want to see how it acts here. I'm going to go ahead and hand fly though. So we'll go autopilot off. Cat 1. Don't touch it. It should still be just fine. That's one thing that drives me nuts. If your airplane's all ready to go on autopilot and you turn the autopilot off and then the guy starts messing around. Just don't touch it. It's perfect.
1,000.
1,000 feet stable. Runway in sight. Landing. Missed approach altitude 3,000 is set. 2 whites, 2 reds. I'm not even touching it. We are locked in here. Little 8 knot, quartering headwind. Looking good. Look at the AOA on approach here. We're almost dead even. Oh, they just shut the runway lights off. Phantom 320. Come on, man. Why'd you shut the runway lights off for me, dude? Air traffic controller's trying to play jokes. Oh, I lost the runway environment. We'll go all the way down to minimum, so I see the pappies.
$500.
Man, so much for non-easy
400.
approach. There we go, runway in sight.
300. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 10. 5.
Ooh, spoilers. I got a little premature there. Reverse screen. Decel. I thought we were going to smash. I prematurely pulled those thrust levers back. Rip. Manual brakes. 70 knots. A 258er. Hey, I'll take it. That was on me. I got nervous. All right, I got nervous. Take a 258er, 43 feet above threshold, so we were just a tad low. 2 feet from centerline, though. I'll take that. We'll clear it here. Yeah, I don't know why I chopped that power like that. I heard him spooling up, and I was like, oh no, don't spool up. That's all right. We're here. We're down. XP Realistic makes it look way harder than normal, but I'd say that was a solid 258. We'll call that hard butter. That's why I have the hard butter emoji. That is why I have the hard butter emoji. Does that come with Toliss Air? No, that's XP Realistic. And that landing was probably that hard because I'm not used to that AOA like that flap. But hey, oops, wrong one. Put taxi on, that off, strobe off, land. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Portland. It wasn't the smoothest, but you know what they say, any landing you can walk away from is a good one. There we go, man. Hey, I'll take a hard butter. I just wanted to test these landing gear out, you know? Something I found out about the updated 321, they like to flare. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll have to analyze it. That's why we have replay, man. We're going to analyze that one on replay. I'm pretty sure I just got antsy there, and I pulled that power back. Because you could see it on the FMA if you noticed. I don't know if you guys caught it, but as soon as I pulled out of man throttle, I was already starting to retard. Now, they will keep the thrust in there until I actually hit 0 and disconnect the auto thrust. But I was antsy, so as soon as we got to that retard, it was already spooling down, and then I was running out of energy, and you got to be careful. You try to float out a 321, you try to really butter that landing, you start pitching up too much, 7.5 degrees max pitch per limitation, so you don't have a tail strike. You really got to watch that. So I saw the speed getting low and falling off, so you just got to put her down. But we'll critique that one for sure. That's a good thing about replay. Tesla guy, what's going on, man? Says, can I ask on your views on the hydrogen Airbus concept presented by Airbus this year? I think it is, there's one hell of a concept, man. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll go ahead and clean everything up. Put you into standby mode. Turn you off. Go ahead and start the APU. We're still cooling down. I didn't start the timer, but you do need a longer cooldown time with the NEOs as well. So, hey, we're down though. Can I do this landing with autopilot Microsoft Flight Sim? I don't own X-Plane. Yeah, you can fly into Portland on Flight Sim for sure, man. Oh, you're asking me, can you do this landing on in that FS 2020? Maybe. I think we'll pay visit to that A321 mod here pretty soon because I know there's been a lot of changes. I definitely want to check out the new sounds. So we'll be heading back over there at some point, guys. But I just, you know, it's hard to leave a platform that has such high fidelity airplanes still. All right, we're going to go ahead and just park it in here. Taxi light can come off. APU is available. Let's go ahead and single engine into the gate. So yellow electric pump is on. And kill 2. Nice little spool down. We'll make it, I just want to see that spool down actually. Oh, look at that. That's cool. I think that's so cool when you're taxiing and the fan blades are stopped. I think that's awesome. I love single engine taxi. All right, let's find a gate here. Let's see if we can make this one. Super hard left. Keep that momentum going. Turn it into the operating engine. Look at that. And we got our guy down there. My trucks aren't quite aligned yet. Let me center up my view. Brake set, APU is available, engine 1, seatbelt sign, spooling down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Portland International Jetport. Wow, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. All right. Let's throw everything into replay mode. You can hear that PTU operating. Electric pump come off. And APU bleed. And let's throw you guys into replay mode. And let's throw this airplane into replay mode. So we'll watch it from over here. Let's check this landing out. Hi! Donna just woke up. Wow, she slept the whole flight. That's pretty good. Jeremy Harvey says, wow, another airplane that does not need help with sounds from a third party. Jeremy, I'm gonna 100% agree with that, man. Like this, you know, when you're buying a Toliss airplane, you're getting more than just airplane. You're getting a support team that has been actively working on it. If you guys have been around since the first 319 came out, they have come a long way with their progress. And I think this 321 NEO is the icing on the cake, man. It really is. It brings a lot more to the airplane. I know everyone has their own opinions on, you know, payware add-ons or upgrades, but I hope I made it at least a little bit more clear for you guys that were on the fence that there is a lot more that goes into a NEO than just switching the engines out. So we're going to check our fuel as well. We forgot to check our fuel on landing. Oops. All right. You're down, buddy. How good is the default NEO sounds? You're listening to it, man. This is actually the first time I've listened to it on replay, so we'll hear it on replay here. We'll see how it is. See, I heard the thrust spinning up, and I got anxious. That's all on me. Hold that pitch attitude. Spoiler. Look at that wing flex animation. They've had to tweak that. They had to have tweaked that, because that looks awesome. Oh, yeah. Talking dirty to me now with these engine sounds. Back back. I guess my only critique, it's been a while since I've been in the NEO. There could be a little bit more high-pitched tone. Here's the thing though, I don't really listen to the NEO from this view or this position on the airplane, so I'm always up front where it's much more quiet. When will the NEO be available? It'll be out on the 15th, man. Will current owners of the Toliss have to purchase it? Yes, it is a paid add-on for $29.95, I believe, on December 15th. Oh, yeah. But, I mean, that's pretty damn good. I mean, say what you want about sounds and the third party. This is pretty good. This is pretty darn good. Let's listen to the same approach from this side, and you can see the sound is shifting from the front to the back. Love this single slotted Fowler flap. Say that 10 times fast. On the inboard. Oh. Nice touchdown. Spoilers, reverse green. Need a paper towel emoji. We used to have one. Did I get rid of it? I think I substituted it out. Yeah, I did. I got rid of it. All right, let's take a look from the runway view, huh? One of my favorite shots. All right. Oh, yeah, you can hear that NEO spinning. All right, let's analyze the situation here. ECAM actions. Let's analyze this landing here. Wow, that's super loud. So we're coming down. I guess I could have flared it a little bit more. Trying to get that center line. Oh, my ears. How are your ears? My ears are deaf. So, honestly, actually, can I keep the pitch up? Hold on. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, I can't do it from outside. I guess I have to take a look at the pitch attitude on touchdown. Let's do that. I'm going to pause it right at the mains. Probably could have just flared it a little bit more. Take it easy, Captain Tom. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Yeah, I just kind of flared it and held it. So, yeah, I'm only sitting at right about 5 degrees nose up. My touchdown speed, 140, coming down below V app there just a little bit. I don't remember what our ref speed was, but I probably could have pulled back just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. But, I mean, that's pretty darn good on touchdown. Look at that smoke effect, man. What we can do here, let's go flyby view, and then I'm going to zoom up here. Right here. And then we're going to go back, and we're going to play it down. And then we're going to play sail, and then we're going to get out of here. It's so loud, it's amazing. It does come in on a lower AOA, and that has to do with the flaps. You got that single slotted flap in the back on the inboard. Honestly, it may not be a butter by X-plane streamer standards, but it's a pretty textbook landing. I mean, you come down with the pitch and just let her come down in the zone. All right, guys, I have had a blast on this stream. I hope you learned something, Airbus. If you just tuned in for the landing and you missed the beginning of the video, we talked all about the Pratt & Whitney versus the LEAP. We talked about what comes with the NEO. Oh, shoot. Hold on, before we do this, scratch that. I want to check my fuel burn. Let's end replay mode. Hopefully it doesn't do anything. Did it clear out? Let's go to the fuel page. Cleared out. Oh, fuel used 11,000 pounds, guys. We used 11,000 pounds of gas. We were planning on a standard 321. Our planned burn was, let's just see here. Our planned burn on a standard 321 was 13.68, so call it 13.7. We burned 11,000 pounds of gas, 2,000 pounds less. We dispatched with 3,000 pounds less than required. So, I mean, that's pretty sweet that you can simulate all that. But anyway, back to what I was going to say, guys. Thank you all for tuning in on this stream. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys got Airbus questions, hit me up in the Discord. Mods, sponsors, donors, thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for working hard on the channel, moderators. Shout out to Toliss. I think this is going to be a fantastic airplane on release. And everyone else just hanging out in chat, I love you guys just as much. Hit the like button for me on the way out, please. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy. I'm P1. See ya.